And the thing is, they didn't have to learn much. They didn't have to learn how to land. All they had to learn to do was how to work the flaps on this and aim it
in the right
and turn it into a missile right into the World Trade Center.
There's also the story about the cell phone calls that were made from the airplanes. By the way, check out this live picture as the sun has come up now, and we are looking at the devastation downtown. But there was a report that the plane that crashed outside of Pittsburgh might actually have had on board 3 real heroes, because there was a cell phone call from a man, you have his name,
Burnett, as I lost the piece of paper, but his last name was Burnett. He had 3 children, and he called his wife Dina and said that, listen, this plane has been hijacked. We're all going to die. I love you. Tell the kids I love them, but we're going to try to take over the plane. We're not going to survive this, but we're not going to let them do what they want to do. He thought that they were probably going to try to ram it into the U.S. Capitol.
And so they apparently must have been successful in diverting that plane, so it crashed. Everybody on board was killed, but the bottom line is it did not ever reach its intended destination.
Went down in Somerset County in Pennsylvania.
We are getting some lists now of the people who have died. Mostly it's the people on board the airplanes, but we do have to tell you that there are 4 gentlemen here. One of them, the Reverend Michael Judge, a New York City Fire Department chaplain, Ray Downey, a firefighter, Chief of Special Operations Command, and ironically, he led a team of New York firefighters to Oklahoma City in 1995 after the bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah building there. Also, William Freeman, First Deputy Commissioner of the Fire Department, and Peter Gansey, a Fire Department Chief.
I've also got a couple of names of victims on the flights. On American Airlines Flight 77, Bob Spiceman from here in New York was on that. That was also the same plane that Barbara Olson, who was
the wife of the Solicitor General.
Yes, who's also a TV commentator and lawyer. And also Leroy Homer was on United Airlines Flight 93, the one that had taken off from Newark going to San Francisco. He was from Marlton, New Jersey. He was a crew member on that flight.
Let's go to Joe Avalar now outside St. Vincent's Hospital. We just had an update there from about the number of people who've been treated, and now Joe has a hospital official with him.
We do. We have Mark Ackerman, who's Chief Corporate Officer here of St. Vincent's Hospital. Thank you for being with us. The numbers, again, for people who've just turned on, 361 patients is what you have here right now.
That's correct. We've, since yesterday morning around 9 o'clock, received 361 individuals here. 90 of those people were admitted here to St. Vincent's. We have had about 58 firefighters and police officers come in also.
Not many survivors then from the actual
That's what's really upsetting to all of our staff, and I think everyone, that we have received the most patients of any of the trauma centers, and it's such a small number in comparison to the numbers of people that were in that building.
You talked a little bit about it at the press conference, and we keep talking about the people waiting around. There's tremendous psychological trauma for people who are watching this, for people who have loved ones involved with the building, for your own staff. How do you deal with this?
We very much want to encourage people to talk about this, particularly with their children. This whole metropolitan area in our country has suffered a terrible tragedy, and people need to talk about it. We have mental health crisis counselors here and at our Westchester and Staten Island sites. We have telephone numbers that we can provide, and people should call into any crisis center, get information, talk to their children particularly.
How are the doctors and nurses handling this?
It's been very challenging. Most of our nurses are married to either firefighters or police officers. It's the way they meet each other in these situations, and really they had to work yesterday not knowing how their loved ones were. But we're holding up well. Our pastoral care workers, we had numbers of rabbis, priests, reverends come to the hospital yesterday to support our own staff. Our pastoral staff has been wonderful, along with our mental health workers, and really our staff knows there's no shame to taking time out to going and talking with someone.
4 people have died here at St. Vincent's Hospital. One was a firefighter?
That's correct. There was a firefighter who passed away here yesterday. The first 3 people that came to us were in very, very critical condition, ultimately died of blunt trauma and burns, and we had another severe burn patient who died during the night.
At this point, have you heard from downtown, are you expecting more people to come?
We hope and pray that we do get more people. We are the closest trauma center. If anyone is pulled from that site, they'll either come here or Bellevue, and we're on the ready.
Last question. Tremendous volunteer effort from people in the community, from stores in the area, but also people who want to give blood. You had 800 people here yesterday. What should people do now?
People should not come to St. Vincent's or Bellevue. Our priority is taking care of patients right now. We are very grateful for everyone's support. We don't need volunteers at this point. We don't need blood here at St. Vincent's. There is a desperate need for blood in New York City. Please go to the New York Blood Center or any other hospital north of 14th Street.
Okay. gentlemen, thanks very much for talking with us. Again, that's the last thing that we can give you is they don't need volunteers here. They need blood, not here. Call the New York Blood Center. I know that you have the phone number. I heard you give it out earlier. I don't have it in front of me right now. Perhaps you can do that again. Call the New York Blood Center. Call the Red Cross. They'll help you. There is a need for blood in the metropolitan area, just not here at St. Vincent's. You heard again, 361 patients here at the hospital. 4 at St. Vincent's here passed away. 1 passed away on Staten Island, and they're hoping for more survivors. Back to you.
Joe, we are going to give that blood center number right now. Let's put it up on the screen. Can we please see that? There it is. For blood donations, 1-800-933-BLOOD. And as I understand it, they were inundated with phone calls earlier, but they say call after 8 a.m. and they'll be able to give you some information. And by the way, the Red Cross has set up shelters in many of the high schools around Manhattan for people who might actually not be able to go into their homes right now because their homes are down, located close to the area with all the devastation.
Latest reports from Thomas Von Essen, the fire chief, is he says that as of this time, 300 of his firefighters are still missing, and he is presuming that they're all gone. That is a quote from him. He believes that they're all gone. The mayor will have a press conference at 8 o'clock this morning.
With the very latest. And of course, the great irony with those firefighters, and there are some missing police officers as well, is that they were inside those buildings working desperately to evacuate people and save their lives, and in the process, they lost their own. Let's go down to Walter Perez now. He is as close to the site of the devastation as he can be. There are thousands of people who are still missing, Walter, and I know there's a valiant effort to find them. What's the latest from your vantage point?
It really is a valiant effort, and as we've been mentioning all morning long, what an incredible outpouring of volunteerism has come forward over the past 24 hours, people coming forward to really donate their time and do their part in helping out in New York's time of need. And a large number of the people who've shown up are registered nurses, and 2 of them are joining me now, Mike Dorian and Joe Fieser. And guys, you just told me some incredible stories about what you saw down there. Explain the situation as it stands right now.
Well, right now, the things that they're finding is unfortunately no one alive. What they have been finding is bits and pieces of people. We got excited at one point when we found a hand that we were hoping was attached to someone, and excitement took over, and we moved the rubble to find that there was nothing attached. And it's been a really sad situation. And as I was standing there looking over everything, I couldn't help but get emotional. All the years that I've known the World Trade Center, and just to see everyone coming together, it's been unbelievable. The fire department, the police department, doctors, nurses, even people that aren't, in the medical field or police or fire department, just helping each other, hoping to find someone.
We talked about the spirit of volunteerism, and you guys are definitely a part of that. And you also talked about the crater that was left behind. Explain what that looks like, and for the people at home who don't really have a good view of what's happening down there, what that looks like and what that's the remains of, the crater that you found.
Well, as we stood on top of the rubble, as the firefighters are working desperately to try to find people caught in the rubble, you're walking around giant craters where you can see 10, 20, 30 feet into the ground, right where the buildings went down. And it's depressing, and it's sad, and it's people are working so hard to find people, and it was dark, and the fires are still going, and the smell is still intense. We're standing there right next to the antenna that lay on top of the building at one point. We were standing 3 feet away from it, and I never imagined in my life I'd ever see the tip of the antenna from the World Trade Center.
Were those craters created from the impact of the building falling down, or were those the dugout areas where the basement was, or something like that?
No, that's basically from the implosion, I assume. They weren't parts that were dug out by the fire department or by the police department. There were definitely weaknesses that were in the structure. I mean, obviously something was going to fall into the basement. The building, the structure itself can only hold so much.
You guys go through so much training to be registered nurses and medical personnel. Is it frustrating to be in a situation like this where there's really not a heck of a lot you can do, but the fact that you're here obviously is a big help, but it's got to be frustrating.
You can't do anything. Everybody is just standing by and waiting. Technicians, doctors, standing by waiting. They can do absolutely nothing. Nobody can do anything. They're sending people away because there's nothing they can do. Just sit and wait and wait. Wait till it gets cleaned out.
Mike Dorian and Joe Fieser, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it. And once again, another incredible story, more incredible stories about what's happening at Ground Zero, the things that they're finding. And obviously, this is going to go on for days and days as the rubble continues to be moved away. Back to you guys.
I have to tell you, it is heartbreaking to listen to their stories.
Well, you can see the frustration on their faces.
Sure. They keep
Yeah.
hoping that they're going to find somebody, and they don't. If I might just reiterate that, do stay home today unless you absolutely have to come into the city. We have a little listing here of things that are closed. It says all businesses below 14th Street in Manhattan will be closed, including all of Wall Street. So if you work at any of those buildings, you will not be able to get to them. You know, the public libraries, the public and parochial schools in the city, the Empire State Building, the Metropolitan Museum.
Colleges, universities. they're all
Exactly. The
closed.
New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, the American Stock Exchange, all closed. The courts are all closed. So the bottom line is that there's really no reason to come into the city unless you are an essential worker or unless you are coming to help
Yeah.
in this situation.
Right now, Brian Thompson has been at Newark Airport all morning, which, of course, is considered a crime scene since that's where one of the jets embarked from. He right now has an update on the traffic situation over in New Jersey about road closings. Brian?
Yeah, Glenn, I was talking to the Turnpike Authority, and they say that as of now, they expect that the Eastern Spur, which is, of course, the exit to the Lincoln Tunnel, as well as the Newark Bay Extension, which is exits 14A, B, and C into Bayonne and Jersey City and then into the Holland Tunnel, they expect that those will probably stay closed all day long, and here's a reason why. Because of the situation in Lower Manhattan, the need to get emergency equipment in there, and the hope, the very slim hope, but nonetheless the hope, that there will be a rush of victims who will be found alive and will need medical attention, need ambulances to rush through the tunnel and into the hospitals in New Jersey, in the New Jersey City area. They're hoping that that will happen, and that's why they expect those roads to remain closed to the public for the remainder of the day as of now. Back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Brian. To some kind of gruesome information, there has been a morgue set up at a New Jersey Army base, the Military Ocean Terminal in Bayonne, New Jersey, which of course is rather isolated from the scene, which is probably good because they have to go through the identification process. We have very limited knowledge about the number of people who are dead other than the 4 officers from the fire department that we talked about, and many of the crew and the passengers on board those 4 aircraft. But we do expect that as the stay goes on, there will be an entire identification process. Also, the hospitals, they do not have their casualty lists, or I shouldn't say their casualty, their patient lists, the people they've treated. They don't have those in a fine form for everybody to have immediate access to. So we can tell you that they are going to have a facility at the new school. There is a whole building there that's being dedicated, or a floor of the building that's being dedicated to help people who believe they may have somebody who was injured. And so, again, it's very important that you try to keep track of that because because they don't have complete listings,
Right.
there may very well be people that you are so terribly concerned about, and at the same time, they're being treated and they just haven't had a chance to let you know.
And again, there is a blood shortage. They desperately need blood, so please, if you can, get out and help, at least in that sense.
Let's go back to Katie McGee one more time just to talk about how difficult it is to move around this rather paralyzed city.
Well, Jane, let's do a quick recap on major thoroughfares closed down. A quick look outside right now on the Panasonic Skycam shows us the LIE in Queens lighter than we usually see it. Now, problems getting here westbound, LIE, Northern State, Southern State, sporadically opening and closing at the Nassau line. FDR West Side Highway closed down south of 96th Street. Inbound Gowanus closed down right now at Fort Hamilton Parkway. Southbound Henry Hudson Parkway closed down at 232nd Street. Do not come into town if you absolutely do not have to. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Katie. Let us give you some phone numbers now for those of you who are wondering and hoping and praying that you can find your loved ones. Here are some emergency hotline numbers. 212-560-2730. That is an emergency hotline.
For information on police officers, you can call 718-677-8238. For information on firefighters, you can call 718-999-2541.
Then they have set up these phone numbers for those concerned about people, family members, and friends who are missing. 866-856-4167 and 212-741-4626. And once again, we also, well, let's give you some airline phone numbers first.
United Airlines, 1-800-932-8555. And American Airlines, the number there is 800-245-0999.
As we leave you for a while this morning, let us take one more look outside at as the sun has come up, and you can see the devastation in Lower Manhattan. That cloud of plume and ash and smoke continues to linger over the city. The Today Show is next, but we will be back with updates throughout the course of the morning. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning. America may never be the same, and this is why. A beautiful Tuesday turned tragic when American Airlines Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. And that was just the beginning. This morning, less than 24 hours later, the heart of commerce and the signature of the New York skyline is no more. Meanwhile, the nerve center of the U.S. military has been deliberately and viciously attacked, leaving a nation and the rest of the world stunned today, Wednesday, September the 12th, 2001.
From NBC News, this is Today with Katie Couric and Matt Lauer.
And welcome to Today on this Wednesday morning, a morning people are waking up in disbelief with heavy hearts, especially those who have lost loved ones or who are uncertain where their loved ones are at this hour. I'm Katie Couric.
And I'm Matt Lauer. There's a look on people's faces in this city that's been there for about the past 20 hours now that I've never seen before, and I'm sure it's being repeated in Washington and in parts of Pennsylvania as well. This was the scene about 22 hours ago. As horrible as these pictures are of airplanes intentionally plunging into the World Trade Center, we still don't know how high the human toll will climb.
The early numbers are staggering. 266 people on the 4 hijacked planes are dead. 2 hit the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. 1 hit the Pentagon, and 1 crashed 80 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. At the Pentagon, up to 800 people now fear dead. In New York City, Mayor Rudy Giuliani says the toll could be more than any of us can bear. The New York Fire Commissioner said that he is missing 300 firefighters and EMS personnel. 33 New York police officers are missing. Estimates are that there were up to 50,000 people working in the World Trade Center on Tuesday morning when that attack took place.
If there is a glimmer of hope, it's this. Word is that some victims have survived in Lower Manhattan. Police are getting cell phone calls coming from the rubble, and people still are being pulled out alive. At this point, there are 2 makeshift morgues being set up in Lower Manhattan, and there are also some heartbreaking reports of passengers on the doomed planes calling loved ones to report that they'd been hijacked, and in some cases to say goodbye.
We are beginning, Matt, to get a picture of the terror on those planes before they crash. Flight attendants being stabbed, passengers herded to the back of the planes. And now new developments overnight in Boston where 2 of the flights originated. 5 suspects have been identified and a car seized from the Logan Airport parking lot. But there is still a lot we don't know and may not know for a long time. The president spoke to the nation last night.
The pictures of airplanes flying into buildings, fires burning, huge structures collapsing, have filled us with disbelief, terrible sadness, and a quiet, unyielding anger. These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat. But they have failed. Our country is strong. A great people has been moved to defend a great nation. Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve.
That was President Bush speaking from the Oval Office last night, and we'll have continuing coverage of this all morning long. Let's begin with NBC's David Bloom, who's close to the rescue efforts this morning. David, good morning to you.
Good morning, Matt. The firefighters, the police officers, the rescue workers who've been laboring all night here in Lower Manhattan tell us, now that they have daybreak, that they confront 3 basic problems. Number 1, there are still fires burning here in Lower Manhattan. If you look behind me, you can see some of the smoke that's still billowing out of what remains of the World Trade Centers as we look south here on West Broadway. But you can also see the fire hoses 22 hours after the first explosion still spraying water on the buildings. Problem number 2 is that there are buildings that they still fear will collapse. Of course, what you have is 3 major structures that have already collapsed, but the great fear is that more buildings have been severely damaged. The third problem is that there's just so much debris that they cannot mount a serious rescue effort. They're in some caverns, the firefighters tell us, looking for survivors, but it is a cruelly slow process. Overnight in New York City, a faint glimmer of hope. At least 2 victims pulled alive from the rubble. And there may be others still trapped inside the World Trade Center's collapsed remains. Reports of cell phone calls from a few survivors pleading for help.
We do know there are people in the building that are alive. We know that for a fact. We're very hopeful that there are pockets where there are people, not only the ones that we know about, but hopefully others.
But elsewhere, the news is grim. The president last night puts the death toll from the attacks in the thousands after an estimated 12 to 20 terrorists wielding makeshift knives hijacked 4 domestic airliners. Brand new video obtained overnight shows the first attack plane crashing into the World Trade Center's North Tower. Minutes later, television helicopters record the second plane crashing into the South Tower. The 2 110-story buildings so badly damaged that they collapse, one after the other. Among the missing, the rescuers themselves. Last night, New York City firefighters and police confirmed that more than 300 of their own are believed dead. And at the Pentagon, site of the 3rd plane attack, firefighters last night say the death toll could rise to as high as 800 people. Last night, Air Force One, escorted by 2 fighter jets, returns President Bush to Washington, where he brands the attacks evil and despicable, vowing that America will win the war against terrorism. With Saudi-born terrorist Osama bin Laden the prime suspect, Mr. Bush makes a thinly veiled threat of reprisal against his backers in Afghanistan.
We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them.
The 2 hijacked planes which toppled the World Trade Center both originated out of Boston, where this morning the Boston Herald reports that authorities have identified at least 5 Arab men as suspects, one of them a trained pilot, and that a car laden with Arabic language flight training manuals was found at Logan Airport's central parking garage. As to bin Laden's suspected role, Senator Orrin Hatch tells the Associated Press that the United States intercepted communications between bin Laden's supporters discussing targets that were hit, and that at least one of the suspected hijackers had known ties to the terrorists. One of the biggest mysteries, why did the 4th hijacked plane not hit a target, crashing instead in western Pennsylvania? One possible explanation, a passenger on the doomed flight reportedly called his wife, telling her, "We're all going to die. I love you," but indicating that he and 2 other passengers had decided to try to overpower the hijackers. Attorney General John Ashcroft told Congress last night that that plane is believed to have been headed for Washington, D.C. Matt, it probably goes without saying that the financial markets here in New York will remain closed today. Airports around the country will remain shut down until at least noon Eastern time. The president plans to meet with his national security team later this morning. Matt?
All right, David Bloom in Lower Manhattan this morning. David, thank you very much. 8 past the hour. Here's Katie.
Matt, thank you. The scene on the ground at the World Trade Center at 9 a.m. Tuesday morning was chaotic, to say the least. Michael George was sitting at his desk on the 33rd floor in 2 World Trade Center, and David Reck was on the street below when the first plane crashed into the North Building. Michael and David, good morning. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. David, let me start with you. You were on the street passing out pamphlets, is that right? Sir, campaign literature?
Yesterday was supposed to be a primary election here in New York, and I was handing out campaign literature for candidates at a housing development in Tribeca, just a few blocks north. And about 8:45, we heard the roar of jet engines, and it was very loud, and the plane came in very low over Tribeca, and it made a slight turn and dove right into the upper part of the first tower.
What was your reaction when that happened? Did you think a terrible accident had taken place?
The first thing that happened, the street was loaded with people. Everything just froze. Everybody just stared at it in disbelief as if it wasn't real. And then lots of people started coming out of the buildings and just looking at the tower. And we were all talking about it all until the second plane hit.
And here we have video of this was about 20 minutes later, and all of a
Yes.
sudden you see another jet crashing into the second Twin Tower. When that happened,
And then everybody, there was just total bedlam. People started coming out and going north on the streets. And there was a school, a grade school, just below us, and some of us went down. There were parents dropping off kids there to see if we could help. And it was just bizarre.
was it bedlam on the streets at that
Total.
point? Were
And their
emergency
kids were
crews there?
screaming
Were they instructing people to leave the area?
No, the emergency crews were more headed a block or two below us. You could hear the sirens everywhere, and you could see the vehicles move. And while we were at the school is when the first building collapsed, and then everyone in mass started heading north, walking up the streets. And as we were headed up through Tribeca, we could see military aircraft flying down the river, and it was very strange, very strange.
Michael, you were sitting at your desk. You work for Oppenheimer Fund.
Right.
You work in the second Twin Tower.
Correct.
What did you hear when the first plane went through that building, the other Twin Tower?
Yeah, you couldn't hear like the crashing of the plane. You just felt the rumbling and the shaking of the whole building. I mean, I think instantaneously everybody knew something was wrong. Everybody within seconds went to the window, and you could just see debris everywhere. It was like a ticker tape parade. I mean, there was just debris in the air. And at that point, I just ran, as did everybody else on my floor. We
Took the
evacuated.
steps.
Yep.
You were on the 33rd
Third floor, right.
And so you started evacuating. I understand when you got to the 4th floor, they made an announcement, which
Yeah.
you ignored, thankfully.
Yeah, there were no, there were no fire alarms going. People proceeded very calmly. Where we were, we couldn't see the plane hit, but as other people from other sides of the building came over, we could, you could hear bits and pieces of what happened. You heard a plane crash, and people continued to walk down very calmly. And then we got to around the 4th floor, an announcement came over the PA saying, the accident is isolated in building 1. There is no fire danger to building 2. And
Return to your desk.
I didn't hear that, but that's what they said. Stay in the building. And most people just continued going. I think most people disregarded that.
Do you know anyone who went back to the office?
And I've been able to connect with most of the people at my company to determine that they got out.
When you got down to the street level, were you in the area when the second plane hit the
Yeah, I was
tower?
just crossing the street. I just got out of the building, was walking across Liberty, and I didn't see anything, but I could just hear what I now know was a plane, but at the time didn't know, if it was a missile or what, but we heard the roaring of the engines and then the crashing into the building and the explosion. And I was just, at that point, everybody just kind of went on their own, was running.
We've heard the most harrowing stories of people witnessing individuals from the building who were on the upper floors, particularly the first tower, jumping to their death, holding hands with other people.
Yeah, I saw, when we came down on the steps, you could just look onto the courtyard between the two towers, and that's where a lot of the debris was. And my coworkers, as we saw, you could see exactly what you just said. It was awful.
It was more than just a few people. There were a lot of people who were jumping.
Some people have estimated 100 to 150 people jumping to
I
their
would
death.
say that's about right.
Did you all sleep last night following this?
I got exhausted, and I did sleep some last night.
A couple hours with the TV on.
And this morning when you woke up, I know, for example, David, that you live in the area.
Yeah, I live just above Canal.
Did you see rescue workers? What was the atmosphere like this morning?
Since last night, anything that's been moving down there has been heavy construction equipment and police vehicles and motorcades, police motorcades. But right now, when I was walking out this morning, it's very quiet. It's a total opposite of what happened yesterday. There's virtually no one on the streets. The Holland Tunnel is closed. There's virtually no traffic down there. Very different.
You said that you had talked to people in your office and connected with the people who work for Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
So many people work at the World Trade Center.
Absolutely.
And so many of us know or are afraid we might learn about someone we know who's unaccounted for at this point.
I would just encourage anyone to call in and check in at least with their companies, because that might, it's a good way to keep track of who is out there. Maybe just haven't connected yet.
How about you? Do you know of anybody?
I don't know personally. Everyone, we have a website up and running at OppenheimerFunds.com, shareholder section for employees to log in, and you can see the list. And everyone I saw who I knew was on the list. So that means everyone's okay.
I guess you all will never forget this day for the rest of your lives. I don't think any of us will. David Reck and
bizarre thing I've ever seen.
Michael George, I'm glad both of you are safe this morning. Thank you for coming in. Appreciate it, because I know you're probably exhausted as well, so thank you. It is 7:14 now. Here's Matt.
All right, Katie, thank you. New York City's mayor is Rudolph Giuliani. Mayor Giuliani, good morning to you.
Good morning, Matt.
I know you've spent an awful lot of time down at the scene of the destruction. Can you give me an idea of what you've seen so far?
Well, I've never seen anything like that in my whole life. I suspect no one else has. The destruction is enormous. The debris is beyond any description, and what we have been doing in the last 10 or 12 hours is trying to get a focus on each day the efforts that are going to need it. First, with the primary concern today being on saving human life and seeing if we can rescue some more people. We've rescued 2 in the early morning hours, late evening, early morning hours. We have another person that we're focusing on right now that we're in contact with, that we're hopefully going to be able to take out. And so the first concern, the first priority is, can we rescue people that are actually still alive there?
And Mayor Giuliani,
the second part, obviously, is to clean up the debris.
There are reports that rescuers are receiving cell phone calls from people who may be trapped in the rubble. What can you tell me about that?
The answer to that is yes, that has happened, and that assisted in being able to rescue the 2 Port Authority police officers that we've been able to rescue and the 1 man that we're in contact with. There have been cell phone calls, there have been cell phone communications. What I can't tell you, and what we're not sure of because we're responding to them, is that all coming from the same source, the man that we're in contact with, or is it more than one? And we're hopeful that it's more than one.
I want to talk to you about what, in my opinion, is one of the most horrendous parts of this story. Firefighters, police officers, emergency medical technicians rushing to the scene of this disaster, getting close to the building, in some cases being inside the building when one of the towers or both of the towers collapsed. Talk to me about the toll this has taken on New York's firefighters and police.
I don't think they realize yet. That's something that we're going to have to deal with today and tomorrow as people absorb the impact of what's actually happened. We have, right now the count is 202 firefighters that are missing. Altogether 259 uniformed service members, meaning police officers and firefighters. New York City police officers, Port Authority police officers, the number 2, number 3 ranking officers in the fire department died as a result of the collapse. So very, very heavy losses and fatalities for our fire department in particular, but also for our police department.
Yesterday you said the death toll here may be beyond what we can bear. Is there any way you can even begin to estimate how many people may be in that wreckage?
The estimates are that there were thousands of people in the building at the time that it went down, and the question is, how many were able to get out? There was a window of about an hour and 15 minutes, an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, depending on the building. There was that window for people to get out. I was there early in that process and saw a lot of people that got out. So that's why the calculation is difficult. We don't know how many people were left in the building, but if we're thinking about the recovery effort and the plans that we have to make, we're assuming in the thousands, and then, you know, maybe it won't be that high. But right now, in putting the efforts together yesterday for the medical examiner, for the recovery efforts, for the resources that we need, the help that we need from the state and the federal government, we're in the thousands in terms of what we think we're going to have to deal with.
I know that plans are in the works now to start to relieve some of the workers, the rescue people who've been on the scene for about 20 hours now, and I know that also a lot of them, the firefighters and police, don't want to leave because their brothers and sisters are still in that building.
Yeah, some of the people that we lost were very, very well known. Bill Feehan is the first deputy commissioner of the fire department that I've appointed to that position. Bill has been with the fire department, I think, 37 years, if I'm not mistaken. Pete Gansey is the chief of the department. Father Michael Judge is beloved in the fire department. He was a fire department chaplain, and 15 minutes before he died, I talked to him and asked him to pray for us. And so the men that we've lost in the fire department are all well known to the other firefighters, and that's why they're there. And the fire commissioner has sent as many of them home as possible, and we have a new crew that came in, and we'll have another crew that comes in now, and we're getting a lot of help from Governor Pataki and from all of the surrounding areas. We had the National Guard here last night to help with the effort, with the recovery effort. We're getting a great deal of assistance.
Can you tell me where this has left the city in terms of, I mean, what's open, what's closed, are roads in and out of the city open?
The 4 boroughs outside of Manhattan are all open, and they're all open for business and operating, you know, as normally as you can operate in the wake of a situation like yesterday, where there's an emotional reaction that you just have to acknowledge and realize is going to happen. Manhattan is closed from 14th Street south. Manhattan is open 14th Street north for business, with the caution and recommendation to people that if you don't have to come in today, it's just going to make things a lot easier with the relief effort if you don't. So my observation coming down here this morning was that things are pretty quiet in Manhattan today.
I don't know how you answer this question, but I have to ask you. I mean, obviously the city will recover physically, but how does it ever recover emotionally?
It becomes stronger as a result of this. It becomes more understanding of the special role that the city of New York has. We're a democratic society. We're open to people. We're a city that's built itself on immigration and on tolerance and on caring for people. And it's a city that has a reputation of being able to handle the worst situations probably better than anything else. So we now have to be an example to the rest of America and how we handle this, and how we show cowardly terrorists that they're not going to make us afraid. They just can't do it. Someone said that the most visible symbol of New York were the World Trade Center towers, and it certainly was a visible symbol. But the most visible symbol in New York is the spirit of a free people, and we're going to show them that we can overcome this, and by reflecting on it and understanding what happened to us, we're going to be even stronger.
Mayor Giuliani, we certainly appreciate your time. We know you have a busy day ahead of you. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
21 past the hour. Here's Katie.
Matt, thank you. Joseph Albaugh is the director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Director Albaugh, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Katie.
On Tuesday, I know that President Bush declared New York a federal disaster area. What specific role is FEMA playing in the recovery efforts and the cleanup?
Well, immediately we activated 12 urban search and rescue teams, 4 to go to Northern Virginia, to the Pentagon, D.C. area, and 8 to New York City. I commend those New Yorkers. They have a resilient spirit, as the mayor said. They're working hard, but right now, folks have been working almost 24 hours, and we need to give them relief. We're still in a response and recovery mode right now. Folks are still alive. We want to get them out of the building, and that's what we're focused on.
As we well know from what happened in Oklahoma City, this could be a very long, drawn-out process. Do you have enough personnel on deck, if you will, to replace those who become exhausted at the scene?
Absolutely. Not only do we have our full-time employees, we have our part-time partners that are disaster assistance employees from all across the country, and then we have our neighbors, folks that we count on in time of any incident such as this. And they're all across the United States, ready, willing, and able to help.
When you say neighbors, meaning?
Neighbors right next door. I mean, this is an incident that brings the best out of Americans. Everyone puts aside their petty differences and rallies to a common cause. We'll get beyond this. It will take some time. It will be painful, but it will be done.
So you're saying you might enlist the help of, say, firefighters, rescue teams, police officers from other jurisdictions throughout the country?
Absolutely.
What is your top priority right now?
My top priority are to make sure that the mayor, Governor Pataki, who I spoke with this morning, have what they need. Those resources, those individuals that need to assist the city in this recovery effort. I'll probably be going to the Hill this morning, doing a legislative briefing, and then up to New York City this afternoon to make sure that the president has his eyes and ears on this subject.
Director Albaugh, I know FEMA steps in disasters and national emergencies, but what unique challenges is this situation, are you faced with in this situation?
Well, our biggest challenge right at the minute, starting in about 35 minutes, our 800 number will be open for those who need immediate assistance. That 800 number is 462-9029. At 8 o'clock Eastern Time, it'll be open, making sure that folks have cash money, if they need temporary housing, identifying those folks that need that assistance. And then the second thing we have to do is make sure we have the necessary personnel in New York, in Washington, responding to this disaster.
So the FEMA helpline should be used primarily, because we don't want to overload it, by people who may need housing assistance, but for people who don't know of the whereabouts of their loved ones, that is not the number that they should call.
That is not a number to call. These are individuals who have been harmed. They need temporary assistance immediately.
Let me give that number again. It's 1-800-462-9029. Also,
correct.
we have a couple of other numbers that I think we'd like to give. One for blood donations. How serious is the need for blood donors?
Well, as you know, yesterday flights were grounded, rightly so that harmed our ability to get blood where we needed it. Folks, if they can, they should donate. Go to their local chapters. I'm sure they're going to be sprouting up all over the United States. We need blood to assist this disaster.
In fact, we have a number of the American Red Cross, 1-800-448-3543. Individuals can call that number and find out where they should go to donate blood. And for financial contributions, Director Alba, I know that people can call the Salvation Army. Is that right?
Salvation Army, American Red Cross, we Catholic Charities, Baptist Men. We have numerous volunteer agencies, which is what makes America so strong in its spirit, as the mayor alluded to.
All right. Well, FEMA Director Joseph Alba. Director Alba, again, thanks very much for talking with us. Good luck in the days and weeks to come. We appreciate it.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you. It is 7:26. Once again, here's Matt.
Well, Katie, as we talked about yesterday, the need for blood is severe, and we were happy to report that here in New York, at least, and I'm sure in Washington and other places, people have been going to hospitals and blood donation centers lining up.
That's right. That
to
is
offer
heartening.
blood. When the nation comes under attack, the nation, of course, rallies behind the president, looking for leadership and comfort. NBC's Campbell Brown is at the White House this morning. Campbell, good morning to you.
Good morning, Matt. The president is in the Oval Office. He's starting the day here with his national security team. The focus here now on getting federal aid to the thousands of people touched by these attacks and finding those responsible. The lights were on at the White House well after midnight as the president's national security team sifted through the latest intelligence, honing in on who was behind the attacks, preparing the U.S. response. In his address to the nation, the president issued a strong warning to any country that might aid the terrorists.
We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them.
White House officials say it was the president's decision to return to Washington. As Bush arrived at the White House, aides described his demeanor as somber but even-keeled. His message to the country, American strength will overcome.
This is a day when all Americans from every walk of life unite in our resolve for justice and peace. America has stood down enemies before, and we will do so this time.
As Tuesday's attacks began, the president was preparing to speak to school children in Sarasota, Florida. He first got word a plane had crashed into the World Trade Center from Chief of Staff Andy Card, then a phone call from National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice, then a second crash. Card whispered in the president's ear, Bush's reaction, one of shock. Immediately, the Secret Service activated an emergency plan to protect the president. He took off on Air Force One, but his destination was kept secret. The plane became a flying command center, Bush's first call to Vice President Cheney. Cheney, Rice, and the president's national security team huddled in the White House Situation Room. But the scene outside on the White House grounds, chaos, as all other staff and press are rushed out in a mass evacuation. Fire trucks blazed down Pennsylvania Avenue. Crowds gathered in the streets as buildings nearby were evacuated. Air Force One brought the president to Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, where the president vowed to retaliate.
Make no mistake, the United States will hunt down and punish those responsible for these cowardly acts.
Minutes later, Air Force One took off again, the destination again a secret. Early afternoon, the plane landed in Nebraska at the U.S. Strategic Command Center near Omaha. Bush went into a bunker to talk to his national security team by live video conference. Fighter jets escorted Air Force One back to Washington. From the plane, he fielded calls from world leaders and spoke twice with First Lady Laura Bush. telling his wife he would soon see her at home.
And security around the White House this morning is especially tight. Matt, the president is expected to be here throughout the day. He's invited members of Congress here to the White House later this morning for what the White House is calling a unity meeting. And then later this afternoon, the president and first lady will participate in a blood drive here on the White House grounds. The president asking all White House employees to donate. Matt.
All right, thanks, Campbell. NBC's Campbell Brown at the White House this morning. Now here's Katie.
Matt, thank you. The president is expected to meet with his national security staff this morning. Secretary of State Colin Powell is just across the Potomac River at the State Department this morning. Secretary Powell, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Katie.
On a human level, I just want to get your reaction to the events of yesterday.
Total shock. I was in a meeting in Lima, Peru with President Toledo and his associates when a note was handed to me. And, I just shouted out across the breakfast table, "Oh my God." And then the situation got worse over the next 20 minutes as more reports came in, and I immediately made plans to return to Washington. Before returning, though, I did attend briefly a meeting of the Organization of American States where 34 other total states, the United States was 33, were assembled to bring into effect a new charter on democracy. And we did that by just a simple vote of acclamation. And then all of the delegates stood and applauded this statement in support of democracy and to show solidarity with the American people in this time of crisis. Since my return, I've been in touch with leaders around the world, with Lord Robertson in NATO, with Javier Solana in the European Union, and Kofi Annan, to make sure everybody understands that we need a worldwide response to this assault on America, because it's an assault on civilization, it's an assault on democracy, it's an assault on the world, and the world must respond as the United States plans to respond.
Secretary Powell, last night the president said those who harbor these criminals will be held responsible if we believe the man behind this is in fact Osama bin Laden and that the Taliban, the ruling government in Afghanistan, is harboring him. What can the United States do to actually back up the president's words?
Well, there are many options available to us, military options, diplomatic options, further isolation of any country that might be harboring who is responsible. We are not yet prepared to state this morning who is responsible, but the evidence is mounting, and I think it'll point us in the right direction in the not too distant future. And then we will have to not only take action on our own part, but also mobilize the world against whatever regimes may be supporting the terrorists who conducted this act.
So you're saying, General Powell, that as of this morning, you cannot say that U.S. officials believe Osama bin Laden was responsible for this?
Let me just say that there is evidence being developed now, and good evidence. We will be able to make a definitive statement in due course, but I think it is best not to speculate until we do have the evidence all assembled, and we make an informed judgment and announcement at that time.
Secretary Powell, a diplomatic response may seem meager to many Americans who, in a poll this morning, said 94% say they would support military action in retaliation if the U.S. can identify the groups or nation responsible. 92% said they would support it even if it meant entering a war. What is your response to that?
I fully understand the views of the American people this morning. We're mad. We were assaulted. But our spirit wasn't assaulted, and our fighting spirit was not assaulted, so we want to respond. You don't attack America like this and get away with it. And so I can assure the American people that the president, if he is able to get the information pinpointing who it is and where they are and get targetable information, I am quite confident that he will look at every option he has available to him to respond militarily.
Along those lines, is the U.S. government prepared to enter a war against these terrorists, and wouldn't that entail committing ground troops to find them, weed them out? After all, the U.S. has launched airstrikes against terrorist targets in the past, and the terrorists continue to survive, even flourish.
Let's not think that one single counterattack will rid the world of terrorism of the kind we saw yesterday. This is going to take a multifaceted attack along many dimensions: diplomatic, military, intelligence, law enforcement. All sorts of things will have to be done to bring this scourge under control. And it is not just one organization, it's a network of organizations. We have to make the whole world understand that this is something we all have to be involved in and not just see it as a discrete response to a single incident. We'll do that, but we have to realize that terrorism has been around for a very long time, and it's going to take a very long time to root it out. But what the president specifically was focusing on last night is that there are nations, there are states, there are organizations who provide havens, and these states and organizations cannot be given a free ride any longer. And a major part of our diplomatic effort will be to mobilize the international community against the actions of such states and organizations once we have a clear understanding of who is responsible for this and who might have been giving them haven.
Do you think this was an individual cell of terrorists, or do you believe this could be state-sponsored? In other words, could Iraq or a country like that have been involved in this?
I just don't know at this point, and I'd rather not speculate. I'm sure as the evidence mounts, we will have a better idea of, one, who is directly responsible, and two, what kind of support they may have been receiving from outside that cell, outside that network, from either state organizations or other types of terrorist organizations. But I'd think it best we not speculate too wildly at this point.
The U.S. spends billions of dollars on intelligence. Was this, in your view, a massive intelligence failure, as it has been called?
I wouldn't characterize it that way. We spend many, many billions of dollars on intelligence, and that intelligence allows us to thwart many attacks. There are many terrorist attacks that never took place because of the fine work of our intelligence and law enforcement experts. But in this case, we did not get the cueing we needed. We did not get the intelligence information needed to predict that this was about to happen or be aware of this kind of event coming our way. So I think it's premature to call it an intelligence failure. Let's see what we might have picked up as we go back and do the post-mortem on how this all came about.
Would you agree with your former colleague, General Schwarzkopf, that we need to emphasize human intelligence as much as technical intelligence? And we've got all the technological toys that can be used for those purposes, but what we need are real thinking, seeing people on the ground to infiltrate these groups.
Absolutely, but it's easier said than done. And we do have to emphasize human intelligence because you can defeat electronic intelligence just by not emitting. So human intelligence is very, very important. And I know that our intelligence community is very aware of that. But these are also difficult activities to penetrate and to be able to stay within such a network for a long period of time. But certainly this will be looked at as we review everything we're doing in the field of intelligence.
If we do engage in another country or take military action, what are the ramifications? In other words, if an Islamic fundamentalist group was responsible, what kind of retaliation might we expect, and what kind of access do they have, these groups, to weapons of mass destruction?
Well, let me not speculate as to what we might do. I think a full range of options will be available, and I know that the Secretary of Defense and his colleagues are looking at that. It all depends on where we run this to ground as to what counterattack we might receive from those who are responsible. But at this time, it's premature to start speculating or to identify them as Islamic fundamentalists. Let's just identify them as a terrorist group that can have no religious underpinning, no legitimate underpinning for this kind of action. This is murder, which is against the tenets of every religion, every responsible religion that is in the world, and it is receiving condemnation from around the world from people of all faiths and religious backgrounds. So let's just view them as what they are, terrorist organizations. And I cannot speculate whether they might have access to the kinds of weapons you've discussed, because we don't know exactly who it is yet, but we'll be on guard for that.
Secretary of State Colin Powell. Secretary Powell, I'm sorry to see you under such terrible circumstances, but we certainly appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie.
It is 7:38. Now here's Matt.
And Katie, I've just been given a report, and I hope it's the first of many reports like this, but we're now being told that 6 survivors have been found in the rubble of the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan, 1 police officer and 5 civilians. Again, hopefully this will be the first of many such reports. And there you see the Statue of Liberty on what has turned out to be another beautiful morning. The irony was that yesterday was a sparkling, crystal clear morning before this terror took place in New York City and Washington and in Pennsylvania. NBC's Pentagon correspondent Jim Miklaszewski was at the Pentagon when that building was struck by a hijacked airliner. He's with us again this morning. Mick, good morning to you.
Good morning, Matt. It was exactly 22 hours ago now that a terrorist flew a passenger plane into the side of the Pentagon here. Firefighters continue to pour tons of water on the stubborn fires that continue to flare up. Unfortunately, grim news this morning. Rescuers report no signs of life underneath the tons of rubble. Once the fires are completely out and that damaged area deemed somewhat structurally sound, the #1 task, recover the dead. Rescue workers using cadaver dogs worked through the night on the grisly task of searching for the dead. Local fire officials estimate as many as 800 were killed, many still buried in the debris. The Pentagon, the center of America's military power, devastated by a sneak terrorist attack. American Airlines Flight 77 hijacked shortly after takeoff from Dulles Airport, with terrorists at the controls traveling at 600 miles per hour with 6,000 gallons of fuel. The jet slams into the 2 lower floors of the Pentagon.
It kind of disappeared over this embankment here for a moment, and then huge explosion, flames flying into the air, and just chaos on the road.
I hate to say it, but I did fall apart when it first happened. I was very frightened. This doesn't happen in America. I guess it does.
Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld was at work at his desk.
I felt the shock of the airplane hitting the building, went through the building and then out into the area, and they were bringing bodies out that had been injured.
The plane slices deep into the Pentagon, cutting through offices primarily occupied by the Navy and Marines. The upper floors later collapse. The question now, how will the U.S. military respond? Worldwide, American military forces are put at the highest state of alert, THREATCON Delta. And even as part of the Pentagon burn, military planners continue to review the options. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Hugh Shelton, with a pledge to retaliate against those responsible.
I would tell you up front, I have no intentions of discussing today what comes next, but make no mistake about it, your armed forces are ready.
The Pentagon has long had a number of contingency plans to attack a variety of Osama bin Laden targets. Those plans are now under serious review. The aircraft carrier Enterprise, headed home from the Persian Gulf, ordered to remain in the area in case President Bush orders military strikes. And the U.S. military is already in action this morning. AWACS radar planes and fighter jets are patrolling the skies over certain areas of the United States just in case there are any additional terrorist attacks against targets here in America. And incredibly, even though you can see the devastation behind me on the other side of the Pentagon, employees here, military, civilian, are reporting to work. They're trying their best to make it look like business as usual, sort of an act of defiance in the face of terrorism. Matt?
Yeah, Mick, business as usual. However, as you mentioned in your piece, the strange fact is that at one side of the building there is destruction, and at the same time, probably right now, there is planning going on in another side of the building.
That's absolutely right, Matt. Those contingency plans have been in place for a long time, and given the very firm resolve and strong rhetoric from President Bush last night, it's pretty clear to the military officials here that they've got a job ahead of them.
All right, Jim Miklaszewski at the Pentagon this morning. Jim, thank you.
Okay, Matt.
Here's Katie.
Matt, thank you. NBC's Andrew Mitchell is at the State Department this morning. Andrew, as you know, I just spoke with Secretary of State Colin Powell. He did not feel comfortable saying outright that U.S. officials believe Osama bin Laden was responsible for this attack. But privately, what are they saying at the State Department?
Privately, U.S. officials here at the State Department and in other places around Washington are saying that there is no evidence at all that a state such as Iraq may have sponsored this. In fact, there is only one terror organization that they know of that has the means and the opportunity to mount something this massive, this well organized, and that person who leads that organization is Osama bin Laden.
I think it is realistic. I think we can...
In the rubble of the disaster, clues possibly linking the attack to bin Laden, America's most wanted terrorist. Reports to the Senate that a member of bin Laden's group may be identified as a passenger on one of the 4 doomed planes, and reports of intercepted communications between his followers after the attack, talking about the targets being hit.
A lot of things point to it. Was either, I would think it would either be Osama bin Laden's cell or some other cell similar to it or kin to it or spin-off from it.
Why bin Laden? Method, motive, money. A well-financed global network responsible for the simultaneous bombings of U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania 3 years ago. linked to the mastermind of the World Trade Center bombing in 1993. Also accused of plotting Millennium bombings targeting Los Angeles International Airport, American tourist sites in Jordan, and a U.S. destroyer. Those plots foiled by counterintelligence teams. But 6 months later, disaster. The bombing of the USS Cole in Yemen last October. In this chilling bin Laden training video released in June, a chorus sings, quote, "We thank God for granting us victory the day we destroyed the Cole." Bin Laden himself is seen saying they charged and destroyed a destroyer. If it is bin Laden, can the U.S. finally track him down? He's a master of deception, harbored by Afghanistan's Taliban rulers for years, moving constantly, eluding the FBI.
It's going to be very difficult, but my expectation is that eventually there'll be a crack somewhere in their armor, and we will determine who is responsible. Then, of course, you have the very difficult task of deciding how to respond and where to respond.
And questions will be asked about the intelligence failure that permitted the terrorists to strike with no warning.
It's true that we cannot have 100% success against suicide bombers who are prepared to take their own lives into their hands. But at the same time, particularly in a sophisticated operation like this, that there are lots of people involved, it needs a lot of coordination. And that creates opportunities for an effective intelligence operation.
For weeks, Afghanistan has been warned that if bin Laden acted against America, America would act against Afghanistan. That warning repeated only just this morning by Colin Powell and, of course, last night by President Bush. So if there is evidence that can be built and a case can be made against Osama bin Laden, Katie, there is no question that America will strike Afghanistan and strike hard.
Andrea, one reason apparently U.S. intelligence officials believe it was Osama bin Laden is that there was communications between bin Laden's supporters intercepted following the attacks. I guess words of congratulations along those lines. This according to Senator Orrin Hatch. What did they said about that at the State Department?
Well, the officials throughout the government are very concerned that Senator Hatch said that publicly. They do not like to talk about electronic intercepts because that is the most secret aspect of what the National Security Agency does. But in fact, we have confirmed Senator Hatch may not have spoken wisely, but he was not misspeaking. There were intercepts as far as we've been told, and this is a pattern because bin Laden's organization also communicated electronically after the embassy bombings. That was a key factor in building the case. So they are building a case, Katie, as Secretary Powell told you.
Let me ask you about another thing that Secretary Powell said, Andrea. He talked about diplomatic solutions. Realistically, what could be done diplomatically that would have any teeth at all or any impact?
Well, they will respond militarily. He made that very clear if the case can be built. But there is a role for diplomacy. Secretary Powell has already, as he said, been in touch with Kofi Annan and with leaders around the world. They have to explain the United States position, particularly at a time when, let's be frank, the U.S. is not widely loved in many sections of the world, in the Gulf, in the Middle East. So there will be a backlash, if you will, if it does turn out to be Middle Eastern terrorism. And he has to lay the groundwork for that and make the case that he was making this morning, which is that this is an attack against civilization. This needs a worldwide response. And at least from the initial response from China, from Russia, from Middle Eastern countries,
even Libya and Iran condemned these
Fidel
attacks.
Castro, exactly. This is such a horror that I don't think it will be difficult, especially for someone like Colin Powell, to make this case.
And in fact, he may travel to the region, is that right?
It's not clear what travel he may undertake, but there have been suggestions that he may personally visit some other countries in order to build that case. But that would be obviously most likely after a coordinated military response from the United States.
NBC's Andrea Mitchell at the State Department. Andrea, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie.
7:48. Once again, here's Matt.
Katie, back here to New York. Doctors at St. Vincent's Hospital in Lower Manhattan have been working around the clock to save the wounded. Dr. Richard Westphal is the Associate Director of Emergency Services there. Dr. Westphal, good morning to you.
Good morning.
We've just had a report, and I want to ask you to comment on this, that 6 survivors have been recently pulled from the rubble of the World Trade Center. What can you tell me about that?
Now, Mr. Lauer, I honestly can't tell you anything absolute about that because we have not gotten any additional victims since the early morning hours. We had 2 police officers about 3 a.m. who came in a rescue mission. They came injured. They were not removed from the debris, so I cannot comment on those 6. We've not gotten anybody here at St. Vincent's. They may have gone to other hospitals.
All right, you're the closest trauma center to the World Trade Center. Give me your overall numbers so far. How many people have you been treating?
Over the past almost 24 hours now, we've had 375 victims that have been brought here, and of that, about 53 have been rescue workers, firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, and police officers who have been injured have come here. We've had over 50 major traumas in the sense of major fractures and head trauma and loss of consciousness. We've had 4 patients that expired at St. Vincent's in Manhattan here. 2 patients came in having CPR from a traumatic arrest yesterday. One of the first victims we got with a major burn expired during the day, and then we had a firefighter who was brought out from a building around mid-afternoon who expired in the operating room. There was one other victim who was brought to one of our other 7 hospitals by ferry. 20 patients were brought to St. Vincent's in Staten Island, and one of those victims we told expired there.
I understand that burns are one of the major problems, major traumas that you're seeing.
Well, initially, Mr. Lau, that's true. I'd say probably we had up to about 15, 20 major burns, and what we did since the patients were brought immediately to the closest trauma center, we stabilized them, made sure it was just burns that they had, initiated treatment, and I can tell you that I'm told that yesterday evening 3 of the major burn victims were transferred from here to New York Hospital's burn center. They were very receptive and helpful as well.
Dr. Westphal, I know that people, civilians living in the area, have been coming down trying to drop off supplies and things that they're assuming the hospital may need, including clothing. Can you tell me what it is that you do need and what it is that you don't need?
Yeah, that's very helpful. At this point, in the beginning, early hours, we needed everything, but I got to tell you, through the media trying appropriately, that message went all day and all night. We do not need any physicians and nurses. We do not need any additional volunteers at our site right now. I think what we all need are, prayers and concerns for family members of loved ones that are down there. But we don't need any exact help that way. We've had local institutions that have been bringing us food, and our local Starbucks is bringing us coffee all night, and we've had tremendous help that way. So I think if everybody just, make sure that they're getting their proper care. I think anybody, I'll speak medically, anyone that has minor concerns of anxiety or post-stress reduction that's of a minor nature, they probably should contact their own physicians as the first line of defense today. But anybody who can't get to contact or see their physician, certainly they should come to their local hospitals, and we at St. Vincent's and every hospital in Manhattan and the 5 boroughs, I'm sure, are very open to helping them.
And Doctor, I was just reading that some of the doctors and nurses who work at St. Vincent's are actually married to police and firefighters, and there was a lot of difficulty yesterday and then contacting their loved ones, which I can imagine was a horrible scene.
Yes, it's very hard. I think I can mention that the nurses and some of our administrative staff that did have loved ones in fire and police that were at the scene and they could not contact, yes, there was a tremendous level of anxiety, but fortunately, during the heat of the battle, everybody focused on their mission of treating, stabilizing, triaging patients, and then the rest of the hospital had areas that dealt with families and questions that came in. We had blood donations, and one thing I can mention, it'll be on TV, it'll be publicized, but they are taking blood donations, but at the major blood banks. I know at St. Vincent's and other hospitals, patients shouldn't come to donate blood, but I would watch the notices on your show and other stations they'll tell you where to donate blood at the major New York City blood bank.
All right, and what you're saying is you don't want people to come down there and clog the hospital up when there's other work to be done.
That's
You'd rather
correct.
them go to the donation centers. Dr. Richard Westphal, Doctor, thank you so much. I hope you see more and more survivors today.
Thank you, Mr. Lauer. We do also. Thank you.
We appreciate your time. 53 past the hour. Here's Katie.
Matt, the precision of Tuesday's attacks boggles the mind. 4 simultaneous hijackings of U.S. airliners. Air travel here will never be the same. NBC's Robert Hager is at Washington, D.C.'s Ronald Reagan International Airport this morning. Bob, good morning.
Good morning, Katie. Well, there you see the idle planes at the gates. The plan, theoretically, is to resume flying. There's clearance to the airlines to fly as of noon today, but in reality, it's probably going to take a lot longer. For instance, here, they won't even be opening the terminal until 3 o'clock. So expect a very, very slow return to normal later on today and tight security. As for the hijackings, officials now say that each plane was commandeered by 3 to 5 terrorists, probably killing the pilots and taking over controls of each of the planes using knives as weapons. Here then is what's known. 4 planes, 266 on board, lost at the hands of suicidal hijackers who turned them into weapons of vast destruction. Boston's Logan Airport, an American flight with 92 aboard, supposed to fly cross-country to Los Angeles, diverted to New York. A flight attendant calls from the flight on her cell phone. Chilling news. Her fellow flight attendants have been stabbed, she reports. Passenger cabin taken over, and they're going down in New York. Back in Boston, a United jetliner with 65 aboard is already in the air, also bound for Los Angeles, 18 minutes behind the first flight, when it too is diverted. A businessman on the flight calls his father twice. First call, a flight attendant has been stabbed, he says. Calls again to tell his dad the plane is going down. This is the actual video of that second plane crashing into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. In Northern Virginia, an American jet takes off from Dulles Airport. 64 aboard this flight, headed to Los Angeles. On board, Barbara Olson, wife of the U.S. Solicitor General, calls her husband on a cell phone, tells him hijackers have taken over that flight with knife-like instruments. Passengers being forced to the back of the plane, she reports. Moments later, the plane hits the Pentagon. And finally, Newark Airport, another United flight, 45 aboard, bound Newark to San Francisco. Hijackers turn it back to Washington, D.C., but it comes down en route in western Pennsylvania. Officials say it wasn't shot down, so hijackers may have crashed it too soon, or there could have been a struggle ongoing in the cockpit. 4 deadly flights, says terrorism expert Neil Livingstone.
I clearly call this a war. I think this is a wake-up call for America. I don't think we'll ever be the same after these attacks today.
How much did the government know as it was happening? Pilots are able to send coded signals to controllers if they're hijacked, but it's uncertain whether any of these crews had time. Even if they did, controllers would have been frustrated, powerless to do much more than notify official Washington and track the plane's moves. Since most previous hijackings have ended without...
And welcome back to a brief Today in New York. We are interrupting the Today Show because the mayor is about to hold a press conference. We're going to go get the very latest information from him. I'm Jane Hansen with Glenn Walker.
And I'm Glenn Walker. We have some numbers now. Mayor Giuliani, who we said is coming on in a couple of minutes, told us that he has confirmed that there are 41 dead. We understand that this morning, 6 survivors have been found at the World Trade Center. They are working right now on pulling them out.
Let's go to Walter Perez, who is as close to that ground zero point as he could be, who's got more information about these 6 survivors. Walter?
Well, Jane, some potentially good news here this morning. About 45 minutes ago, we'd heard that there were 2 people that were found alive. Now, as you mentioned a short time ago, we've heard as many as 6 people have been found. Possibly one of them is a police officer, maybe as many as 3. Right now, I want to be perfectly clear as far as the information that we're getting. All that's confirmed is that 6 people have been found alive. Whether or not they've been pulled out right now, we don't know. And whether or not any of them, if not one of them, is a police officer, that also has not been confirmed. So possibly 1, maybe 3 police officers maybe have been pulled out. But the one thing that is certain, 6 people have been found alive. As soon as I'm done here, we're going to head down to ground zero and find out what's going on. Back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Walter. We believe that some of those people may have been firefighters. Joe Avila is at St. Vincent's Hospital. You've witnessed something, Joe.
What we've witnessed is them gearing up, getting ready. Yes, the information we're hearing here at St. Vincent's Hospital is that 6 firefighters have been found alive in the wreckage, in the rubble at World Trade Center. Let's show you what we have over my shoulder. We have 4 wheelchairs pulled out. Wheelchairs, notice, not gurneys, and then we have 3 gurneys set up next to them. Again, the number we're told is 6 firefighters pulled out alive, pulled out from the wreckage at World Trade Center. Wonderful news for us here. In fact, volunteers were clapping just a short time ago when they heard the news. Now let's back up a little bit more. Just about half an hour ago, Governor Pataki was here. He came to the hospital to thank all the people who've been working so hard, thank all the volunteers who have been working so hard, and also to talk to us and tell New Yorkers to keep up their help. This is what the governor said a short time ago.
Can you give us a picture of what it looks like? It's incredible to see the devastation down there, but also you have to be inspired by the professionalism and the courage of the thousands of people who are working down there right now. The amount of debris that has been removed is phenomenal. And we had people right there at the base of the tower, firefighters, going through the rubble. Well, right next door, as of early this morning, there was a high-rise still burning under risk of collapse. And they put their own safety aside to try to save the lives of the people who are trapped in that rubble. And it just, you see the death, you see the destruction, but you sense the hope because of the tremendous spirit of the people working down there.
we're back live. The ambulances have not shown up yet, but there's a buoyancy here in front of St. Vincent's Hospital. Yes, there were many people in the building, but finally there is hope that they will find some people alive, as we've been talking about from the beginning. We've heard here at St. Vincent's Hospital that 6 firefighters have been found in the wreckage, apparently in not too terrible shape, since they have, as I said, wheelchairs behind me for 4 of them. We'll let you know when they arrive. That's what's happening here. Back to you.
Perhaps ambulances are getting close. A question, did the governor say anything about state employees who worked in the World Trade Center? Because there were a number of them that did.
The governor did not. The governor did not talk about state employees or other employees at the World Trade Center, except to ask for all New Yorkers' prayers at this point. That's all the governor was saying. The governor is trying to keep up spirits. The governor is trying to keep up hope. The governor is trying to get volunteers and people to donate blood. And he wants to keep it. We all know what happened. He's trying to keep us moving along.
Okay, thank you, Joe. And we will look forward to seeing the pictures of those firefighters as they get to the hospital.
Again, Mayor Giuliani says that there are 41 confirmed deaths. He says that as of right now, there are still 202 firefighters missing, 57 police, paramedics, and emergency workers. And the Fire Department of New York has now made a partial recall of all firefighters. So if anybody is watching that as a firefighter, they need to contact their assigned units.
They obviously, the people that have been working are worn out, fatigued. They've been sleepless, and they are, working desperately to try to rescue people from the rubble. The city is empty, and it is it's eerie to look at it. The streets, there's very little traffic, and as you can see, there is no one in Manhattan today, but then almost every business, or at least most businesses, are closed. Schools are shut down. A variety of museums, etc. That's Grand Central.
Now, at this hour, Grand Central right now would be wall-to-wall people at 8 o'clock in the morning.
It would be, but people wisely are staying home as they should. Let's go to Katie McGee to bring us up to date on what's closed and what's not.
Well, Jane, we have been stressing all morning long the importance of really staying home, not traveling into town. We do have a couple of hot spots for you this morning. We're going to start you off right now. Panasonic Skycam and a look at the Tappan Zee Bridge. The Tappan Zee Bridge, one long crawl coming out of Rockland into Westchester. Right now, delays paced at about a 40-minute wait as you travel in through the area. Now, on top of this, of course, this is the only real segue right now to get into the city or to get you down into the Bronx, into Queens, and all the way out to Long Island. This is why we're seeing these delays. A look at another bridge for you. We'll look at the Verrazano Bridge. Now, we've been telling you all the bridges directly heading into Manhattan closed down. All tunnels heading directly into Manhattan closed down. We do have some problems at the Staten Island bridges. Now, we've been mentioning all morning long Bayonne, Goethals, outer bridges closed into Staten Island. We've been getting some calls from people that have been stuck at the Goethals Bridge since yesterday afternoon. Traffic has not been backed off. Now, because of this, the Turnpike, you cannot exit at exit 13, so now 2-mile delays in either direction on the Turnpike at exit 13. Again, these just some indications of why it's very important. Unless you are emergency personnel trying to get into town, you really need to stay put. We'll keep you posted with road closures. By the way, we do have some updates for you. Southbound Van Wyck, they do have some police checks right near the belt. Southbound Cross Island, the same, so big delays building there. Westbound LIE, Northern State, Southern State, they have been alternately open and closed all morning long right at the Queens line. Again, these indications that this is serious and police checkpoints are going to be set up. So although we may say a road is open now, there is no way to guarantee it will stay open within the next half an hour, 20 minutes. It's changing rapidly. We're here to keep you posted. Really, you need to stay home if you can. Jane, Glenn, that's the very latest. Back to you.
Yeah, we've got numerous reports of people who have attempted to get into the city and they simply can't.
You just can't do it.
The checkpoints, and they just don't have the proper credentials.
Also, what I mentioned is a heavy military presence now in the tri-state area. We are told that the USS George Washington, an aircraft carrier based in Norfolk, Virginia, is now patrolling off the coast of New York to help and make sure that nothing else happens. Northern American Air Defense Command is providing air defense for the city. The Atlantic Fleet is off the coast of New York, off the coast of Washington, and they are definitely keeping an eye on things.
I have to tell you that last night I heard on 3 separate occasions what sounded to be like fighter jets over the city. And
when I left yesterday, I heard one. I looked up, and there was an F-16 flying over Central Park.
Yep, so they're obviously keeping close tabs on any kind of air traffic around here, which of course there is very little of other than military at the moment. We have something that is quite astounding to show you. It is some firefighting training video that was actually being shot yesterday at the World Trade Center, ironically. Now let's take a look at this. We've not seen this video ourselves yet. We want to take a look at it and see exactly what it contains.
Oh, my goodness. You could see the firefighter hearing the plane coming in. He looked up, and the camera caught the plane going right into the building.
That's obviously the first of the planes, and that's from a completely different angle that we've seen it from. And obviously, I'm sure those firefighters that were there participating in that training video immediately dropped all of that and ran to the World Trade Center.
That's incredible.
That's quite startling.
Very startling.
We, of course, are waiting for the mayor, who's supposed to begin a press conference any second now. The word has gone out to doctors and nurses to come into the city and that can and to help at the various and assorted hospitals, and a lot of them have responded in many different ways. Dr. David Marks is here with us right now. In fact, you actually tried to find out how many people have responded, and you can't even get through because there's been such an outpouring of help.
I actually tried to respond myself because I thought maybe there was some way I could help, but I couldn't get through on the lines at all. You know, this is great news, by the way, that the 6 people were rescued, but I just want to say we should all have hope, of course, but trauma surgeons talk about the golden hour of saving people. People who are critically ill, critically injured, they have about an hour or so to get to them in most cases to save them. So getting people out is critical now. I mean, we're 24 hours out now. So I think the people we're going to be seeing now maybe aren't so critically injured, but obviously they'll still be having problems.
This is a bill at St. Vincent's Hospital, and they've got 4 wheelchairs and 3 gurneys. The wheelchairs perhaps indicating that maybe they're not that badly hurt.
Right.
I mean, we don't know where they were and what happened to them and how they ended up underneath the rubble, but perhaps they were buried in a way that did not cause them serious injury, which is possible.
Right, it's very possible, and I think we'll be seeing those type of injuries coming out, crush injuries, rubble falling on people, maybe hurting legs.
Broken legs,
things like that, because people who were seriously injured, I mean, 24 hours out, it's a very difficult thing to survive that. So we really need to get to them as quickly as possible. But everybody should, of course, have hope if they don't know where a loved one is.
Maybe this is just, you know, hundreds of people standing out there just waiting.
I have to say, it disturbs me a bit. It scares me, the fact that all these beds are empty, all these wheelchairs are empty, and the hospitals haven't gotten people. And the longer that happens, I think the worse it is.
According to reports we have, you know, yesterday and last night, the New York ferries going back and forth across the Hudson were actually being used as ambulances. They treated 2,600 injured people over at Liberty State Park.
In a triage center that was just built out of nothing there.
Yeah, and even more disturbing, the Military Ocean Terminal in Bayonne has been turned into a makeshift morgue, and you know, we don't have any confirmed reports, but we understand it's not a pretty picture over there at all.
They apparently have taken quite a few bodies there.
Right.
But that was one of the things yesterday that we had reporters at the hospital who kept saying, we're waiting for the ambulances to be carrying victims here, and they just aren't coming. But on the other hand, many of those people might have been taken over to Liberty Park.
That's right. I think there's probably a little chaos right now, not knowing where people are also.
And that's a big problem for the families of these victims. There are an awful lot of people that are unaccounted for. Many of them may very well be in a hospital or at one of these triage centers, but the notification process has not been easy. There are no lists when you go anywhere looking for them. You've kind of got to search it out on your own. You can call the hospital. They'll say, no, I don't have that person listed here now, but they may have been there, they may be coming there, they may be there, and yet not on that list yet, because the most important thing is to treat them.
You have to treat them, that's right. And no matter where they are, you have to get them treated.
Well, they have declared a state of emergency in New Jersey, and there are several large hospitals with trauma centers, and apparently that's where a lot of these people have been taken.
Well, I know I was at Bridgeport Hospital last night in Connecticut, and that's a major burn center in the area. And they were all waiting and waiting and waiting. They were anticipating a lot of injuries, and of course nobody came. So it remains to be seen what kind of volume the centers will get.
We'd like to put up on the screen now, while we're waiting for the press conference, some emergency numbers once again, where you can call for information, and we do urge you to use these phone numbers. Emergency hotline, 212-560-2730.
Get the next number up here for police officers. If you're looking for one of these missing police officers that we told you about, as of right now, 57 police, paramedics, emergency workers. The number is 718-677-8238.
Firefighters, There are over 200 of them.
202 as of right now.
That are missing. 718-999-2541.
Okay. Missing family and friends, and what is heart-wrenching, on our website, on the bulletin board, we have hundreds and hundreds of messages from people desperate to find family members. Unfortunately, we can't help you on the website. This is where you need to call. You need to call for missing family and friends, 866-856-4167 or 212-741-4626. Missing family members and friends, this is the best we can do for you right now.
But the other thing about the bulletin board on the website is that if you perhaps were in those buildings, you can put your own message on and to show people to show people that you are all right. And of course, our website is a place where you can absolutely get all kinds of information and again get all these phone numbers. Can we take one more look at that firefighting video? I find this pretty incredible. With the great irony here, downtown, close to the World Trade Center, they're making a video for training purposes, the New York City Fire Department.
Now watch the firefighter here. Obviously they hear a low-flying jet. You see, watch him. You can hear it. He looks up. They catch it on the video. Incredible.
That is just amazing. That is just amazing video.
And of course, about 18 minutes later, another commercial jet flies into the other tower. And before the end of the morning, they were both completely obliterated.
And of course, that second jet was broadcast live.
Yes, we were sitting right here.
Scene.
Didn't even realize it at first because we were so focused on the building that was already in flames.
Suddenly exploded.
Yeah.
Building number 2. Joining us right now is Dr. David Grand, who is a trauma specialist that works with people all the time in helping them cope with grief. And we talked to you earlier this morning about people who literally watched that sight. I mean, think of the firefighter that put his head up and looked at the building with the plane smashing into it. There were a lot of people who called us that were looking out their apartment windows and saw the very same thing. How can they get rid of that nightmare? I mean, they never will, but how do you cope with what you saw that was so startling and so unbelievable?
Well, it's very early in the situation to even talk about this, but the people who are traumatized by what they have seen, and this includes what people have seen on television, there are techniques now that do get deep into the brain that help you to release the frozen images and the sounds and so on. Not that it disappears, but that it becomes less symptomatic, so that it's something that you experienced instead of something that's stuck. What really happens is the brain processes information, and it's like a film where things go by, and the film breaks and you get stuck on a certain frame, and when you can't get that image out of your mind. But there are techniques such as EMDR and some other body-oriented techniques that get into the brain that help the brain to reprocess what it couldn't.
We had so many people who either evacuated the towers and the other buildings down there, or were caught in that kind of firestorm when the buildings actually collapsed, that have told us these horror stories of day turning into night, of finding any place they could. These are memories that they will always carry with them.
They will always carry the memories, but as time goes on, we will find that there are ways so that it doesn't have to be stuck trauma symptoms, and that it goes from the symptomatic to the memory.
Doctor, if I can interrupt you for a second, if we have a live picture here, usually when a fire's out, the smoke turns white. We have more dark smoke coming from downtown right now, and I understand that we have Jay DeDapper on the telephone, and he is with the mayor. Jay, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. The mayor's actually not here yet.
Okay.
He is in the location. He is not here ready to speak yet. He has obviously had a little bit of sleep overnight, and back at it this morning. He will be briefing us and briefing the city in just a few minutes to let us know how the progress is going with the search and the rescue operations down at the former World Trade Center, and also how we, as a city, begin to get back to normal. We should be hearing about that in just a little bit. Glenn?
Okay.
Hey, Jay, do you have any information about there being either another building on fire or something being re-sparked down there? Because we've got some live pictures now that indicate to us that the situation looks like it's changed.
Yeah, I don't. I'll tell you why. The mayor is in right now with all of his top people, including obviously the fire commissioner, police commissioner, and all the other, the commissioners and the deputy mayors and all the people who make the city run. They are in a meeting right now, and we don't have any access to them. Obviously, if there is a new fire breaking out or if flames are starting up somewhere where they thought they had put them out, he is learning about that now, and we should be learning about that shortly.
Did you notice on your way to hook up with the mayor how empty the city is, how vacant all these streets are?
Yeah, actually a couple eerie kind of stories. I live in a building that is on top of the PATH train tubes, and this morning, after, I don't know, an hour or two of sleep, the PATH train rumbles underneath, and I sat up, boom, in bed, because it reminded me just too much of being a couple blocks away as I was when the first Trade Center buildings collapsed. The other thing was that once that rumbling subsided and I kind of sat up for a minute, I heard birds chirping. And in my neighborhood, you don't hear birds chirping on a weekday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. I looked out the window, and as I was walking across the village towards the location that the mayor is at, which we can't disclose for security reasons, there were people walking their dogs, a handful of people, a few people out sweeping the streets in front of their homes or in front of their businesses, and everybody taking a look as they crossed the avenues, first across Hudson Street, and then across 7th Avenue, and then across 6th Avenue, at the end of which all of these avenues should stand 2 tall towers.
Jay,
just that cloud rising.
Jay, if we could interrupt you for a moment, we have a live picture of this is a One World Financial Plaza, and you can see smoke coming out of the top. It looks like we have another office building that is on fire.
All right, I will do what I can to find out about that here. Obviously, again, all of the people who are going to know about that are in with the mayor right now, and that's got to be a concern that another large building down there, while they're trying to go through the search and rescue operations, they have yet another major fire to fight. We will try and find out what we can about that here at this location where the commissioner is.
And again, this is unconfirmed. We're only showing you what we can see here on our sky cams. The only comforting news is that those buildings are evacuated, and there is no one in them.
But there is black smoke billowing out of the top, which is not a good sign.
No, it's not. And again, we will try to find what information we can. We are hoping we can hear from the mayor shortly, because there's an awful lot of information that we need to ask him to be able to cover this story properly and to be able to give you all the information.
Well, and I think it gives a lot of people comfort to actually hear from the leader of the city.
It does,
to know that he's in control.
Exactly, because we're all searching for answers. We could tell you a little bit about the investigation, what we know about the investigation into who caused this horrible disaster. There is a report in the Boston Herald this morning that said authorities had named 5 suspects, 5 Arab men that they believed were among the hijackers, and that they had an automobile in a parking garage near Logan Airport, which is, of course, where 2 of the airplanes came out of the 2 that smashed into the World Trade Towers, and that they were found in that automobile. They found pilot training materials in Arabic. And they also talked about perhaps one of the hijackers might have come across the border in Canada and taken a flight from Portland, Maine down to Logan Airport much earlier yesterday morning.
And we also know that the FBI is actually down at Embry-Riddle University, which is a aeronautical school down in Daytona, Florida. Apparently 1 or more of the students are missing. They actively recruit students from the Middle East, and there's a good possibility that the hijackers actually learned to fly one of these jets right here in the United States.
That university is in Daytona, did you say?
It's in Daytona, Florida.
There was a report earlier, too, that the FBI was searching some homes in Broward County.
Yes.
So that may be the relationship.
There's a lot going down in Florida. You mentioned the cell phone calls, and we talked about this earlier. The plane that went down in Pennsylvania, a gentleman, I forgot his first name, last name Burnett.
I think it's Tom.
Tom Burnett called his wife, Dina, said, look, we're all going to die, but the plane's been hijacked, and 3 of us or 4 of us are going to overpower these guys. And it appears that that plane was either headed to Camp David or the nation's capital, probably going to slam into the U.S. Capitol or the White House, and they stopped that from happening. They gave their lives up, which was going to happen anyway, and they were brave to the end, and the basically just crashed in an open field in Pennsylvania, Somerset County.
The reports of the cell phone calls that were apparently made are quite chilling.
Yeah.
And you will undoubtedly hear more reports of that as this day goes on. We're going to go back to Joe Abelard at St. Vincent's Hospital to see if any sign of those firefighters are arriving yet. Joe?
News just a short time ago about 6 firefighters that I was told were found alive, told here by officials at St. Vincent Hospital. At this point, no trace of those firefighters, just the activity that we saw a short time ago. The wheelchairs suddenly brought up forward and several gurneys brought forward. The doctors and nurses, however, who were out here have gone back into the hospital. I'm told that sometimes this kind of thing, they go to Bellevue, so that they've been splitting up some of the people, and that some go to Bellevue and some come here. At this point, we have no idea where those people will be taken, if they'll be taken here or to Bellevue. And of course, we've been reporting all morning long that St. Vincent's is the primary trauma care center south of 14th Street. Of course, Bellevue is a trauma care center as well. Here at St. Vincent's Hospital, they have 375 patients right now. The people who have been brought in the past few hours have been firefighters who've been working as rescue workers down in the scene, and they've been brought up here. Again, what we've been telling you, what we've been told is 6 firefighters found alive in the rubble, 6 firefighters who were working when the buildings collapsed, found alive in the rubble. We're waiting for those firefighters to come here. There was applause here a short time ago. We're waiting for that to happen. Jane?
Okay.
Glenn?
And as we are waiting for the mayor, who's being briefed as we speak, one of the things he may be talking about is what appears to us to be some sort of, I don't know, a fire. There's something going on in this building, which is
One World Financial Plaza.
And, you know, again, there's nobody in that building because no businesses are allowed to be open south of 14th Street. But, again, it appears that perhaps yet another building has been touched by this awful catastrophe. Let us talk a little bit about what is closed today. Most non-essential workers are being told not to come into the city of Manhattan. You're going to have a tough time getting here anyway because there are checkpoints all along the roadways if you intend to drive. There is train service on Metro North and on the Long Island Railroad. And some PATH train service, but again, once you get here, you're going to have a tough time getting around the city because there's virtually very little that you can do to get around other than using your own 2 feet. We can also tell you that the public schools are closed, the libraries are closed.
All colleges, universities shut down.
Pretty much closed. The New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ stock market, the American Stock Exchange shut down. Courts are closed today. Public, parochial, and private independent schools in the city are closed. And the other thing is about the post office. There will be some mail delivery, but it's going to be kind of abbreviated. And again, if you're expecting something from Federal Express, which mostly comes in on airplane, you're not going to get it.
Won't happen today.
So
maybe this week.
So don't be don't be counting on anything like that.
Also, if there are any firefighters out there that just happen to be watching and they are back home, we have a report the Fire Department of New York has made a partial recall of all firefighters, so you should contact your assigned units and find out what they need from you.
We have some very limited lists of some of the casualties. As you can expect, that list pretty much contains most of the 266 people that were on board the 4 aircraft, the doomed aircraft that crashed yesterday. We also have 4 people from the New York City Fire Department, top brass, including the Reverend Michael Judge, who was a New York Fire Department chaplain, Ray Downey, the Chief of Special Operations. Ironically, he went out to Oklahoma City when they had the terrorist attack there. William Feehan, a First Deputy Commissioner, and Peter Gansey, a Fire Department Chief. And there are still over 200 firefighters that are missing.
Okay, right now, let's go over to Jersey City, where Christine Perez is standing by. She has had an eye on this fire that's developing in One World Financial Plaza. Christine, what can you tell us?
Well, you know, we noticed this smoldering for the past half an hour, and if you take a look up at the building, you'll notice a hole. And a lot of people who are here in Jersey City in this park have been watching this, a hole with smoke coming out. And I can tell you that we really don't have any officials here, so we can't confirm anything to tell you what this is. But a lot of people out here are looking at this and in disbelief, and as they are at the entire city covered with smoke. It's hard to imagine that as you look at this, this is one of the most vibrant cities on the face of this earth. But again, we're trying to figure out what this smoke is. We haven't been able to talk to anybody here in this park. The command center is set up about, I would say about 200 feet away from where we are. It's on the other side at 70 Hudson Place. And we haven't been able to get a hold of anybody there to find out exactly what this fire is, but we're going to attempt to figure out and make some calls and find out what this exactly is. And of course, a lot of people watching this are watching in fear, hoping that we do not see a repeat of yesterday. That is the story out here. Back to you in the studio.
Christine, you're in Liberty State Park. We understand there were 2,600 people taken there in Jersey City yesterday. Liberty State Park or Jersey City. Can you tell us what is like over in New Jersey today, now that it's daybreak?
Yes, you know, I spoke to a woman about 30 minutes ago, and she told me that she had escaped from Battery City. She actually came on a ferry. She got on a ferry with her dog. She got over here to Jersey City. She had nowhere to go. She found a shelter nearby. And then she came outside, and apparently a woman who lives in one of these condos here came up to her and said, where are you from? And she said, I'm from Battery City. I have nowhere to go. And she said, why don't you come with us and stay with us today and tonight? So she's staying with people she doesn't even know, but the mood out here is very, very eerie. There are people just walking around in shock. They're walking their dogs. They're used to this every day. And earlier we had shot the sunrise, a very, very eerie sight, because normally today you wouldn't have been able to see the sunrise, but you could see it earlier because the Twin Towers are no longer there. But people out here are just in shock walking around. They can't believe they're watching this.
Christine, are any of those people, the injured people, still over in that area?
We haven't seen any injured people over here this morning. If that was the case, it might have been yesterday. But this morning, a lot of people coming out here are people who live in the condos overlooking the water here, and they're just coming out to look at this devastation. Some of the few people we've seen are not injured. About 3 people we talked to had escaped from Battery City, but they didn't appear to be injured. They had got here safe. Earlier this morning, we showed you the command center set up on the other side, and a lot of volunteers were going to the other side to take in, and they had taken about dozens of body bags. I understand that at about 7 o'clock earlier this morning, a load of people from Jersey City went to the other side to see what they could do to help out.
Ferries running? Have you seen the ferries going back and forth on a regular basis or not?
You know, we saw them about 2 hours ago, but we have not seen them go back and forth in the past hour or so. So at this time, actually there is one coming in right now. They were taking medical supplies earlier to this morning. They took it over. A lot of volunteers coming here from all over the Northeast to just help fellow Americans. So a very, very sad and somber mood here in Jersey City as we look at this devastation.
Those ferries and even barges played a very important role in the rescue operation yesterday, providing a lot of people with a means to get away from the devastation, and they actually carried a lot of injured people to New Jersey.
What a poignant story she told us about the one lady, a complete stranger from Battery Park City, had no place to go, didn't even know the woman, and said, just come home with me. You can stay with us.
But again, it points out the spirit that is enveloped this city, this spirit of working together, of helping each other. We've heard countless stories like that, and I think that if there's any small light in any of this, it is that.
By the way, I want to mention that Christine Perez is coming in from our sister station, WCAU in Philadelphia. A lot of NBC affiliates nearby have come in to help with our coverage because obviously our resources have been spread pretty thin, and she's doing a bang-up job considering this is not her normal terrain.
That's for sure.
She's not familiar with the area. She's doing a great job for us.
Well, we, again, are waiting for the mayor, who's going to brief us on exactly what's happened, the very latest. And there's also going to be an 8:30 press conference at St. Vincent's Hospital. But again, we continue to look at this building in puzzlement, wondering exactly what's going on. This is the One World Financial Center, One World Financial Plaza.
One World Financial Center?
Center. And it's,
okay.
Again, it's right next door to where
what was the World Trade Center.
And perhaps there was some damage that was done, some peripheral damage to this building, but we are looking at smoke coming out of it. We don't know what it is. All we are simply doing is observing at this point. We have no official confirmation that anything is going on there other than what we can see.
As far as numbers, what we can give you, Mayor Giuliani has confirmed that 41 people have died. Now, we understand Joe Avilar is standing by at St. Vincent's Hospital. We're expecting 6 survivors at any time to be brought to one of the area hospitals.
That's what we're hoping. I told you, a reliable source told us 6 firefighters were found alive in the rubble. And of course, Walter Perez also talked about 5 or 6 people found alive. That's what he'd heard down where his position. At this point, other officials from St. Vincent's are saying that they have no information that people will be brought here. It's possible that those people will be brought to Bellevue Hospital. That's also a trauma center, and people are brought there. But one thing that's not very good sign is that we showed you a lot of activity when you first came to us. I think it was about a half hour ago. We showed you a lot of activity. That activity has actually stopped. It has died down. If people were going to be brought here, there certainly would be a tremendous amount of activity. They would get at least a 5-minute warning. That's what they're telling us. And of course, we'd hear sirens. We have heard no sirens. There is no activity other than the initial activity. That's the unfortunate news. Now, I can also tell you that there will be a press conference here shortly at St. Vincent's Hospital. We're expecting that at any time. In fact, talking about that information, there was applause. As I told you, there was applause among volunteers here. It looks like the officials are walking up to the microphone right now. The first person to speak will be Mark Ackerman. Mark Ackerman, and the head of trauma will be speaking, and 2 paramedics from the scene. They'll be speaking. Mark Ackerman right now at the podium.
Good morning again.
Here he is.
Just a brief update from St. Vincent Catholic Medical Center. We now have 365 patients. A few more have come in the last several hours. We experienced this, unfortunately, with the last World Trade Center disaster. People wake up and feel some aches and pains they didn't feel from the day before, perhaps from a fall running from the scene, and also some psychological trauma that becomes very apparent the next day. We have a number of mental health workers on scene, social workers. We anticipate throughout the day we will see much of this, particularly with families. We have also gotten more information. Our hospitals in the system, St. Vincent Catholic Medical Centers in the outer boroughs, received 65 patients in total, and the 1 fatality that I spoke to you about before. I have Dr. Jesse Blumenthal, the head of trauma, just to bring you up to date on some of the things we've been seeing overnight in the emergency room. And then we have 2 of our paramedics, Tony Suarez and Phil. I'm going to let Phil pronounce his last name. We'll give you those spellings if you need them later. These 2 gentlemen were on scene from 9 a.m. yesterday until last night. They can tell you a little bit about their experiences as paramedics at the scene, and then we'll open for questions.
Mr. Ackerman, before you go,
Sure.
We're live right now. Tell us about the reports about possible survivors and possibly being brought here.
We have heard some reports that there were survivors taken out of the building within the last hour. We did receive a call from EMS that we should be prepared, but later reports have told us that if there are anybody that needs hospitalization, we may not be receiving them.
They would go to Bellevue?
Possibly Bellevue would be one possible scenario, yes. Okay, Doctor, just a little bit about what we saw overnight.
Well, unfortunately, we wish we had more patients to treat that came in overnight because, again, there was difficulty in getting to the scene, and I think the paramedics will describe that. But we have been busy taking care of the patients that we did receive. The three of the severe burns were transferred to the Cornell Burn Center. We have automatic transfer agreements between
Let's take a brief respite from this news conference to look back at this building. We can see whatever it was, that fire appears to be out now at One World Financial Center, so it appears to be good news from down there. You can see there's a bit of scarring on that roof, but the flames have been extinguished.
Jane, something just crossed on the wires, and I'm looking at this, and frankly, when I read this, it's probably going to make a lot of people's blood boil. But this is an AP story from Islamabad, Pakistan. It says, Saudi dissident Osama bin Laden congratulated the people who carried out the deadly terrorist strikes in the U.S., but denied Wednesday that he was involved. Osama bin Laden thanked Almighty Allah and bowed before him when he heard this news. Jamal Ismail, Abu Dhabi Television's bureau chief in Islamabad, said, quoting a close aide of bin Laden, Ismail said the aide, whom he wouldn't identify by name, called him early Wednesday on a satellite telephone from a hideout in Afghanistan. Bin Laden praised the people who carried out the attacks in Washington, New York. Ismail said, quoting the aide, but he had no information or knowledge about the attack ahead of time.
Well, that is not the same kind of information that the FBI and authorities are giving out. But
well,
It's disturbing.
He's gutless.
We are going to go back to the hospital. Joe Avalar is there, and we're going to listen to some paramedics at this press conference.
I'm just wishing well for everybody that's down there, all my colleagues, everybody else that's giving help. Like I said, it's just a horrible sight. It's a horrible day, and I wish everybody well, and we're here to do whatever as much as we can.
Hi, paramedic Tony Suarez, St. Vincent's. Initially, I was there for about 15 minutes. There were a couple explosions. It became dangerous. We grabbed one person. We commandeered an ambulance and just hightailed it out of there. My prayers are to the fellow firefighters, EMS, police officers that have died, and hopefully we'll be able to get some more out of there. We weren't able to get to the scene simply because it was very unsafe. So please, if you can, everybody, please pray for those that have fallen today.
Can you be specific about what you saw?
I was only at the scene for a little while, but it was unsafe, and basically I heard one explosion and basically just hightailed it out of there. It was very unsafe for everybody, and that's the only thing that I saw. I mean, I had one patient, we grabbed her, put her in the ambulance, she was full of soot. She was covered from head to toe with ashes, and basically dropped her off to a site and then went back to the command center.
I think if it wasn't for the first patient I took out, Jenny, who we took to Cornell, I would probably not be here right now. She was just covered in second, third degree burns, and we just got her out of there. And I hope she's doing well.
So could you explain a little bit about what the paramedics do in terms of stopping every 45 minutes or so collision, and how they proceed?
I don't understand the question.
One of the doctors here was saying that you stop or so every 45 minutes, check and see if you hear anything to try to find out if there could be anybody in the rubble.
Oh, we're just listening to the radios. I mean, we're just listening. Oh, and at the scene right
We've
now.
been listening to a press conference at St. Vincent's Hospital, which has really been the trauma hospital for this disaster. And they updated to say about, 3 or 4 more people have come into the hospital overnight, but most of them on their own accord.
Now 365 patients they have in St. Vincent's.
And we, of course, had heard this report that there have been 6 firefighters who have been pulled from the rubble. And we are awaiting either their arrival there or at some other facility. And, you know, that would be a very welcome sight in this town right now to see survivors.
Right now we're rejoined by Omar Wasso, who has been perusing the internet for us. And what kind of information do you have for us?
Well, again, there's some very sort of disturbing, sad stuff on WNBC.com. People posting, looking for their loved ones. Everything from, you know, looking for my son who worked on the 105th floor. Any news from, you know, about so-and-so who worked at this company. And even I saw a post from someone in Malaysia saying, you know, we may be far away, but we're with you in spirit. So some support. But still quite sad.
One of the other things, though, you've noticed some sites that may contain false information.
Yeah, I mean, in the same way that there is kind of a lot of misinformation, a lot of rumor that's circulating now, there's information online where it's hard to tell what's true and what's not. So I've seen lists of, you know, these are the list of the people who are dead. This is the list of the people who've made it out of the World Trade Center alive. It may turn out that some of that is accurate, but people should not believe, there's a phrase I love, caveat lector, let the reader beware. Be very careful what you read online. Wait till you see it certified by other news sources. Wait till you see it put out by a legitimate organization. Don't just trust what you see posted randomly.
Okay, Omar, we just have a story that crossed. Mayor Giuliani says an entire company of 6 or 7 men survived when the building toppled around them. A Port Authority Police Sergeant, Jay McLaughlin, was brought out alive from the ruins at 7:30 this morning. So that's at least one officer we know that has survived.
And apparently, so the mayor is saying that there's 5 others.
Right.
That there.
2 other Port Authority officers were rescued late last night. Okay, we knew about that. But as we said, still 202 firefighters, 57 police officers still missing.
But every person they pull from that is a joy to report.
And that's a name we have now. A Port Authority Sergeant, Jay McLaughlin, has survived this disaster. That's good news.
And we hope we can bring you a lot more of that as this day goes on. Let's go over to Katie McGee, because we have been telling you about the situation with the transportation in the city. Apparently, things, as ever, are changing.
They are, Jane. This has been status quo since we have started yesterday. I have a little bit of an update for you at the Staten Island bridges. Let's start this off by taking a look outside at the Panasonic Skycam. What you've got to look at right now is the Verrazano Bridge. This obviously takes you between Brooklyn and Staten Island. Now, at the Staten Island Bridge crossings, since yesterday, we have seen the Goethals, the Outer Bridge, and the Bayonne closed down Staten Island bound. We've just now gotten calls saying those bridges have in fact reopened into Staten Island, and that the Verrazano, which has been open Staten Island bound, will now have both levels reopening into Brooklyn. So that, of course, good news for folks that have been stuck. Again, we got some calls this morning, stuck at some of those bridges into Staten Island since yesterday. Let's talk about some big closures that continue this morning in New Jersey. Take a look at the map. Of course, basically all of the main roadways leading to the Hudson River crossings remain closed down at some point this morning. Turnpike, you've got the exits closed down at exit 13. Now that the bridge has been reopened, the Goethals Bridge, we'll keep you posted, let you know if that changes. Elsewhere on the Turnpike, Newark Bay Extension still closed down, northbound Eastern Spur, that remains closed down for you as well. Eastbound 4 closed in Englewood, eastbound 46 still shut down for you in Fort Lee. Southbound Palisades Parkway in Alpine. Eastbound 80, you've got the express lanes closed in Saddlebrook, the local lanes, those are going to be closed in Fort Lee. And of course, multiple police points set up in and around the city. So again, we've got delays on the LIE coming off of the island delays, Van Wyck and Cross Island down to the Belt. And of course, both the FDR and the West Side Highway, those remain shut down completely south of 96th Street. That is the very latest. Back to you.
And again, if you're trying to get into town, you're going to be stopped at all these checkpoints if you're in your car.
Yes, you are. And all of the bridges and tunnels directly leading into Manhattan still closed down on the inbound side.
Okay, thank you very much. Did you happen to notice with the report we had with Christine Perez a little bit ago, that there was a fighter jet that flew overhead?
Oh, you could hear it flying overhead. Yes, you could.
Yep, and again, that's...
which is a good feeling. That's good to know.
Omar?
Although one of the things that was really scary yesterday is that when people were sort of fleeing the collapsing buildings, you heard the fighter jets going overhead, and for us, in the sort of dark and in the confusion of all the dust floating around, the sound of a plane immediately evoked another potential terrorist attack, and so
Hey, I heard it last night, and that scared me as well until I realized what it was.
I mean, it really gave you the feeling you were in a war zone because you could barely see and you heard the jets overhead. So it's reassuring now, but at the time it was quite scary.
Sure, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
We have been told that the FAA is going to allow planes to fly again at noon, most likely. But again, that's going to be a real scattered return because, for example, in Washington, the terminal isn't even going to open until 3. Brian Thompson is in Newark. When are they going to open the terminal there?
That we don't know right now, Jane, I have to tell you. We have talked with the FAA, however, and while they will not confirm 12 o'clock as a opening of the airwaves time, they do say that there will be a news conference in Washington probably around 10 or 10:30 this morning, in which we expect to find out for sure what time the airlanes around the country and therefore, of course, the airports will be open and ready for business. We can tell you this, however, I've just been on the phone with Continental Airlines out in Houston, and they say they have several scenarios that they're looking at as to how to get the planes back in the air once the FAA allows that to happen. Obviously, let's say the FAA did pick a time of 12 or 1 or 2 o'clock. You can't just start pushing planes away from the gate at 1 or 2 o'clock within a minute or two of the lifting of the ban, simply because you don't have people in position, you don't have passengers necessarily at the airports and ready to get on board the planes. So there's a lot of logistical planning to do here. Now, in talking with the FAA, they say as soon as that ban is lifted by headquarters in Washington, the air traffic controllers are on standby. They are ready. They are manning the towers. They're manning the Ronkonkoma Center, which covers this whole section of the Atlantic seaboard for all the traffic that's transiting from Boston and elsewhere. So parts of the system will be ready right away, but others won't. Live at Newark, I'm Brian Thompson, News Channel 4. Back to you, Jane and Glenn.
All right, thank you, Brian. Of course, we've been waiting for a press conference with Mayor Giuliani that was supposed to start about 12 minutes ago, and Jay DeDapper is somewhere downtown, and he is also waiting for that press conference. Jay, are you there?
Yeah, Glenn, it's going to be at least another 20 minutes. They're telling us now this briefing is that the mayor is in right now with his commissioners and deputy mayors and OEM staff, the Office of Emergency Management staff, is going a little longer than expected. There's obviously a lot to cover. The mayor has been doing largely television interviews and radio interviews and just trying to keep up with the demand from the media for the last several hours. And so this has been his first chance to catch up on what has happened in that time. And obviously with daylight, there's been a lot of activity down there, a lot of changes. And so that's what's going on right now. And as soon as he gets out of that, we should hear from him and have a lot of these questions answered.
Do you have any idea right now about exactly what's going on at Ground Zero, Jay, just in terms of removing the rubble? Are they still hearing voices? Are there still cell phone calls being made?
Haven't heard of any additional cell phone calls other than those reported last night. What we do know is that they consider this to be a race against time, because the way that the Trade Center or any large skyscraper is constructed, if you kind of imagine, it's made out of very large building blocks. And even though you saw all the dust and you see all the destruction and you think that how could anybody be alive, these large building blocks, as they crumble on top of one another, create fairly large spaces that people could be in, could have survived in. They have, with listening devices overnight and into these early morning hours, they have heard some sounds, some indications of life. And so they are working, as I said, it's a race against time, working to get these pieces moved without shifting the rubble in any way that's going to cause there to be further collapses, to get inside there and find these pockets they believe are there, and hopefully find survivors who would then be in the pockets.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate that, Jay, and we'll be back to you as soon as the mayor is ready for that press conference. We have some more information in about the investigation into who these hijackers, these terrorists, actually were. Now, Maine's governor says that the two of the suspects in the attacks apparently had New Jersey driver's licenses. Governor Angus King says the men flew to Boston from the Portland International Jetport, and they left behind a rental car that was impounded in the Portland area. King says he was given this information by the Maine State Police, but the FBI there has declined not to comment, as I assume they will in the middle of an investigation.
So that's disturbing. Two of the suspects with local ties, so they obviously knew the area.
Well, again, everything we've heard about this attack has indicated that it's been being planned over months, if not a year or more. And so therefore, I guess it's not very surprising that they would build themselves a nest of sorts here so that they could conduct this operation and do it in a fashion that would draw a little attention.
It'll be interesting to find out exactly where in New Jersey those driver's licenses are from. Okay, right now, let's get an update on what's going on with Metro North with Dan Brucker, who's on the phone. Dan, can you hear me?
Yes, I sure can hear you. We are operating at a normal schedule today. However, we have told people if they don't need to get into Manhattan, not to come here. Well, that has been the word. To give you an example, a train from Poughkeepsie this morning during the rush hour that would normally have as many as 1,200 customers had 60 customers aboard. I'm no doubt one of the reasons why the entire city and, of course, Grand Central Terminal just looks as if it's evacuated. However, we are operating on time, a regular schedule for those people who absolutely have to get into the city. We will have normal scheduled trains heading out as well.
Okay, Dan, it sounds like you've got things pretty much under control there, and actually, frankly, it's good to know that that people are not commuting into the city, because we've urged them not to. Let's go to Joe Avalar. He is at St. Vincent's Hospital, and he has, it appears to be one of the paramedics with him.
One of the paramedics who was there at the very beginning. In fact, Phil Egerkarens, you were telling me you were actually there. You saw the plane hit the building. Is that correct?
The initial plane I saw from Brooklyn. That's when we first responded from. We saw the first plane hit. And then we came over the bridge, and we were able to station ourselves right in front on West Street. And that's when the second plane hit. And my partner and I, was actually my fiancée Ellen, we just had to get out of there. So we just took the ambulance, we moved over to the Liberty Street, and that's when people started coming out. We saw one patient that was just a second, third degree burns all throughout her body. And if it wasn't for that patient that we took over to Cornell, I think we wouldn't be here. Because that's when then the rest of the building later on started to collapse, and that's when we returned, and that's when we witnessed the second collapse, and it was just a horrible sight. It was just incredible. I mean, everything was overwhelmed. It was just overwhelming.
How is that woman that you brought out of there? Any idea?
I believe I think she's gonna make it. I mean, she just has horrible burns. She's horrible burns, but she's gonna make it.
Now, you have been working since this at 8:45 yesterday morning. Is this continuous?
Actually, I worked from about 8:30 to about midnight, took up about a 4 or 5 hour break, and I'm here since 7 this morning, so I'm back on it.
Thank you as a New Yorker, but how do you deal with this?
Oh, it started thinking, I don't know. I mean, I'm just doing it because I just want to help. I mean, you don't feel tired. I feel numb right now. It's such a surreal scene. I can't explain it. I'm here because I feel like I have to be here, and I want to help.
And you keep going.
And I keep going. Yeah, that's what's keeping me going. Just want to help people. If I could do anything to anybody, I mean, anywhere, here or in the scene, I'm there.
And that's what we all feel. Yeah. That's what we all feel. Phil, thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us. Phil Eggert-Cairns, who was there at the beginning, very beginning. He saw the plane hit the building in Brooklyn, went straight there, and was there when the second plane hit the building, as you heard. We still have no more further information about the people that we told you about who were pulled out from, and we were told they were survivors. We were told there were 6 firefighters who were pulled out of the wreckage down at World Trade Center. It's possible they were brought to Bellevue. At this point, we just don't know. Back to you.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe. Let's get another transportation update. We have Greg Trevor on the line from the Port Authority. Greg, what can you tell us this morning?
Well, at this point, we can now report that the Staten Island bridges are now open in both directions and that no tolls will be collected today. The George Washington Bridge remains open on the westbound upper level, and we are attempting to move forward on further openings on the George as the day goes on. Also, the PATH trains are operating service both eastbound and westbound between 33rd Street in Manhattan and Newark, Jersey City, and Hoboken. The Port Authority bus terminal and the Port Authority airports continue to remain closed until further notice.
Greg, once again, do you have any updates now on the conditions or what's happened to many of the Port Authority employees who were in the World Trade Center area when everything happened yesterday?
I'm sorry to say that we do not have an update at this time. Port Authority people have been working around the clock attempting to ascertain the whereabouts of people, and we hope to have additional information as soon as possible.
So you don't know how many people are missing?
At this point, I'm not in a position to discuss that.
Okay. Is part of the problem that because of the time of day, you had people coming and going, and, you know, and again, it's hard to know where everybody is at one given time?
Also, at this point, I'm sorry, I'm just not in a position to speculate at this time as to what would be contributing to that situation. Certainly, this occurred during rush hour yesterday morning as people were coming into work, and the Port Authority is doing everything we can to determine the whereabouts of people who remain unaccounted.
All right. We appreciate it. Thank you very much for speaking with us this morning.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Okay, Jane, we have another phone call. This is from a young man named Christopher Gansey. His father was one of the firefighters who perished in the World Trade Center collapse. Christopher, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
First of all, our condolences to you and your family.
Thank you. Thank you. We need him.
What can you tell us about your father?
What can I say about him? I mean, my father, he was the chief of the New York City Fire Department. He was the chief of the department, and when you saw him on the street and you asked him what he did, well, he was so humble, he would just say that, I'm a New York City firefighter. He didn't say that he was a chief. He didn't see that he was the highest ranking official, highest uniformed official. He would just say that he's a New York City firefighter. And I believe that that's the kind of thing that people are going to remember about him. And the fact that he was so selfless, and actually, ultimately, that's what got him killed, was the fact is that he wouldn't leave his men. And I know that about him. And it's going to be terribly missed.
Christopher, I would assume that he was pretty much at ground zero there trying to get people out and trying to rescue as many as he could. He was doing his job.
Mm-hmm. He was.
What was the last conversation you had with him?
Actually, the night before. He goes to work at about 5 in the morning, so he goes to sleep pretty early. So I try to make sure that I see him before I go to bed. And I God help, at least I got to tell him that I loved him. And he went to work like every other day. He went to work happy, knowing that he was doing the one thing that he loved to do, which was help people, like so many other of the hundreds of thousands of people that lost their lives yesterday.
Chris, can you tell us where you were when all of this was taking place yesterday and how you found out?
Yeah, I'm a pharmaceutical sales rep in Brooklyn, and actually that's where the fire department headquarters is, so I see my father all the time. I come in and visit him. And I was actually on Flatbush Avenue, which actually has a great view, vantage point of the World Trade Center, and I actually saw the second collision of the airplane on the other tower of the World Trade Center yesterday.
And did you assume that your father was there?
Absolutely. I assumed that my father was the first one there, because that's the way that my father was. He was brave to the nth degree, and he had to be there with his guys on the ground. He had to be there, ground zero, with his men, and ultimately that's where he ended his life.
Tell us about your family. Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have an older brother who's actually on the New York City Fire Department. He's actually in one of my father's first houses, which is Ladder 111. which is in Bedford-Stuyvesant. I have a younger sister, Danielle, and we're all just tore up right now.
And how's your mother doing?
Terrible. I mean, she's a strong woman, and we're going to come through this, you know, together as a family, but, you know, this is the time. My father's close to retirement. You know, he could have actually had an option to retire in December, and he just wouldn't do it. He wouldn't leave the job. He had enough years on. He had the time. He could have retired. He's been playing golf. But I know my father, he had to be there. New York City Fire Department was his life. So, I mean, that's just, you can say that about him.
Christopher, is your brother with the family, or is he downtown?
Actually, he came home yesterday. He was on site yesterday with my father. So, as you can tell, up until last night, we're all sitting by the television with a vigil, you know, praying for both of them, you know, getting calls from family, from friends, you know, and just trying to spot anybody on TV that looked familiar. And actually what really set home was that one of my father's staff chiefs, a chief by the name of Al Torrey, who's the chief of safety, I saw him on television, and he was crying his eyes out, covered in soot head to toe, bleeding, and just crying like a small child. I mean, it was unbelievable. And then I knew pretty much that something bad must have happened to my father.
Well, it sounds as if the firefighting tradition that your family has served this city so very well over the years. Your father sounds like he was just a remarkable, incredible asset for our community.
He was. He really was, and he's going to be terribly missed.
Christopher, thank you for joining us this morning. We really appreciate it. I know it's difficult to talk, but by the same time, we're so happy to have learned some things about your father and the sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifice he made.
I appreciate it.
In the line of duty.
And again, our heart goes out to you and your family, and our condolences.
Thank you very much.
Again, was Christopher Gansey. His father was Peter Gansey. He was the chief of the fire department. He perished yesterday when the building collapsed at the World Trade Center.
There were 4 very high-ranking fire department officials that we know of who were killed. And usually when we hear of a tragedy, it's the rank and file. But in this case, they were right there on the job, trying to do their very best. From report after report we've heard of trying to evacuate people. We've on the telephone right now, Mark Edelman from the Red Cross. Mark, good morning.
Hello, Jane. How are you?
Well, bearing up as best we can amidst this tragedy.
Right.
What can you tell us? I know you've got shelters all over the city. What can you tell us about people who are coming to those shelters and what, you know, what they're doing at the moment?
Right. As you know, the Red Cross mission is to help citizens prepare for and cope with emergencies, and obviously we're in the cope with emergencies phase. Yesterday we became operational, as everyone else did here in the city. We assessed the situation, and we became operational. We opened last night 12 shelters, as you mentioned. There are 10 of them in Manhattan, 1 in Staten Island, and 1 in Brooklyn, and many people came last night and stayed over. They will continue to stay open as long as there's a need. If people out there need a place to stay, if they need a hot meal, if they need to talk to someone, please come to one of the shelters. They're listed in all the media. Hopefully you'll put them on your screen as well. In addition to that, the Red Cross has been helping the emergency workers who are on site. Yesterday we helped feed about 10,000 emergency workers who are doing a lot of the hard work. And in addition to that, we are putting a great effort in the area of crisis counseling. You've probably been traumatized. I've been traumatized. Everybody here in New York has been touched somehow by this disaster, and we are very aware of that. The Red Cross has trained professionals who are crisis counselors, who are mental health workers. We have them on site at Grand Central Terminal, in Port Authority, at Penn Station. We have our roving groups going around the city in our emergency response vehicles, because we know that people are traumatized. We know people saw things, glass flying down in the southern part of Manhattan. We know people have very high anxiety levels. We know people can't get information. And so what the Red Cross is providing is a way to talk some of these issues out with trained professionals. Many of them have been trained. I think I saw we had 350 trained professionals already standing by. Some of them are out there working. We do need more. And if there are New York State certified psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers, please come by the Red Cross or call us at 1-877-RED-CROSS, because I think, and we all think, the Red Cross thinks that this emotional problem is going to be with us for many, many days to come.
You're right, and not only have we put your shelter sites on the air, but we also have them on our website at WNBC.com. So again...
That's great. You know what people can also do, Jane, is give blood. And the New York Blood Center has many sites around the city, and if people want to give blood, we urge you to give blood. And if you need to find one of these sites, call 1-800-933-BLOOD. And the New York Blood Center will help you find a place to come and give blood. 1-800-933-BLOOD. And one other thing people can do around town and in New York here is to support the Red Cross in this effort. We are obviously going to be putting a great deal of effort into this operation over the next several weeks. And if you'd like to contribute, there's a very easy way to do that by calling 1-800-HELP-NOW. And we would really appreciate anybody who can to think of us in this particular situation.
All right. Thank you very much. And we have put both those numbers up on the screen as you were talking, Mark. And I'm sure we will be chatting with you in the hours and the days to come.
Okay, thanks, Jane.
One more telephone interview with a gentleman named Jim Horn of Circle Line Tours. And instead of giving tours yesterday, Circle Line was involved with ferrying people, injured people, across the river.
2,600 injured were taken across to Jersey City. Countless casualties were taken to the marine terminal in Bayonne, New Jersey, and that's what the ferry boats and the Circle Line tour boats were used for. Jim, are you there?
Yes, I am.
How are you doing today?
Okay, I'm a little tired.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Tell us about your experience yesterday.
Well, actually, we were not carrying the injured people. We were carrying people who were trying to just get home. And we were going from Circle Line at 42nd and the Hudson over to Weehawken. And we had 4 boats going. The boat that I was on, we did 7 trips, and we carried over 4,000 people. And we carried people who worked in the World Trade Center. I had a lady that was late for work, and her entire office was gone, and the people who worked in it. And she went to the command center. The people were incredible, and they were so grateful getting home. And we had people crying on the boats. It was very emotional and incredibly surreal.
And I'm sure, Jim, from your vantage point crossing the Hudson, you could see exactly what was going on at the World Trade Center towers, the collapse, etc.
We certainly did, and we saw the 3rd building go down. And there was a guy who works in the World Financial Center, which is the buildings with the copper tops. Matter of fact, the one with the pyramid top that was smoking earlier, that's American Express. And he was just like in a daze. But we all were. But I tell you, New Yorkers are incredible, how they just sort of pull together. And all those people walked from downtown
to 42nd
up to
Street?
42nd Street. Yes, that was the only way they could get there.
Jim, where were you when the planes actually hit the buildings?
I was walking to the boat because we had a 9:30 tourist boat to go out, and we had people on the boat. And all of a sudden, I just saw the smoke. I didn't see the plane. And of course, everything, was canceled for the tourist boats, and we went into operation into, helping people. But every boat in the harbor did that. We were not the only ones who did that. But the people on the boats, our boats, the boat I was on yesterday carries 575 people. And the people were very orderly. They were very quiet. It was, I don't know if you were ever here during a blackout, but it was that same type of feeling where New Yorkers just came together and were so understanding. They were not pushy. They were wonderful. And these people, all the people on the boats just wanted to go home.
Oh, I'm sure they did. Jim Horn, we thank you very much for sharing your experiences with us.
Okay.
On the telephone now is Senator Hillary Clinton. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Jane.
Can you give us any update from your perspective, anything you may know about the investigation into all of this, anything?
Well, Jane, we've been in constant communication with, the White House, all of the law enforcement agencies, and clearly there is an extraordinary amount of effort being undertaken to piece all this together. I think that the main message coming out of all of us here in Washington is that we're united, and we're united not only on behalf of providing every resource we can for New York City to do everything it needs to do, but also we're united behind the president in whatever action he deems necessary. You know, I've talked to all my colleagues. I've been in meetings, bipartisan meetings. We're getting briefings, and I'm conveying both the extent of this disaster, which is hard even for some people to grasp. You know, as I talk with my staff on the ground and other people who are on the front lines, you know, I have just an overwhelming pride in the way that New York has responded. I heard your prior caller. There has been just no sense of panic or in any way an effort to, you know, undermine the continuing search and rescue mission. And that's a real tribute. And I know that this is a time of deep mourning, but, you know, also profound determination. And we're going to continue the search and rescue. One of my colleagues told me today that, you know, dogs are on the way from her state because they are needed to relieve the dogs that are helping in the rescue missions. We're going to find out who's responsible. We're going to do everything in our power to hold those people accountable. And we're going to need a united America to help us rebuild so that we can stand in absolute rebuke to these terrorists and their evil goals. But I wanted to just check in with everybody there to, you know, let them know that we're getting tremendous response here. I'm hoping to get into the city later today with some of the emergency officials from Washington so that I can not only see for myself but report back to the Congress and the White House about what we need to do to make sure that, you know, we are totally given the resources we need to rebuild and get back where we need to be.
Senator, we're seeing on the wires that it's trying to show that it's business back to work in Washington. Is this a message that you need to not only send to America, but to the rest of the world, that this will not slow us down?
Absolutely. You know, Glenn, part of our message yesterday, as we gathered with the Republican and Democratic members and leadership from both houses, is that anyone who thinks, no matter how terrible the tragedy and the evil motive behind it, that this will in any way undermine our values or our way of life is sadly mistaken. You know, at the end of this press opportunity where the leaders from both parties spoke, just spontaneously all the members began to sing "God Bless America." And it may not have been the best rendition ever recorded, but it was the most moving I've ever been part of.
Sounded great to me last night.
It was actually one of the most poignant moments that I'd seen last evening. We were all pretty touched by that. Senator, how far will we go in terms of punishment when we find out who it is, for sure?
Well, Jane, we have to do whatever is necessary and required, and, you know, that is something that will have to be developed carefully by the president and his advisors. You know, having spent 8 years on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, I know the difficulty of combating a threat from such shadowy sources, but we have to go further than we've ever gone before, and we have to make clear that no matter what our relations with any state, anywhere in the world, if they not only harbor terrorists, and I would go further even than what the president said, if we can prove that they fund terrorism, that they turn a deaf ear and a blind eye to terrorists in their midst, that they give in any way license to individuals with the financial means to put together the kind of attack we saw yesterday, they will pay a price. So this is an absolute commitment from the entire government, and we're, you know, standing behind the president as they put together the plans that are necessary.
Senator, this is Gabe Pressman.
Hi, Gabe.
How are you?
Oh, I'm, you know, I'm heartbroken, and especially I just can't say enough, and I met early this morning with a bunch of my colleagues, mostly Republicans, to try to convey to them, what our firefighters and our police officers and our emergency personnel and our hospitals and all of our people on the front lines have gone through, so that, they have some taste for what you all are seeing in a very personal way.
What about at a time of mourning? It's hard to bring this up, but do you feel that there was a failure here of our intelligence in view of the fact that bin Laden, if he is the person to blame, warned 3 weeks ago that a massive attack of some kind was to take place?
Gabe, I think it's too early, and at this moment, not necessary for us to look backwards. Obviously, if there were security lapses at airports, which is something I'm deeply concerned about, if there were intelligence lapses, we have to be willing to look those hard in the face and try to fix them and make sure that, that this can never happen again. But, I'm reminded of after our embassy bombings in Kenya and Tanzania, I was privy to a lot of the planning that was going on, and we had what we thought was very good intelligence about where bin Laden was at the time at one of his training bases in Afghanistan. And, the strikes were ordered, and several dozens of people were killed or injured, but somehow he wasn't where we thought from our intelligence he was supposed to be. This is I don't think we can underestimate the difficulty of pursuing people in the shadows. When the day of infamy occurred and we were bombed at Pearl Harbor, we knew who the enemy was, and we knew what we had to do in order to defeat the enemy. Right now, we have to take much stronger measures, and we have to start with an absolute commitment that everybody in the world understands clearly, ally and foe alike, that we are not going to rest until we find these perpetrators. But having said that, this is a very difficult undertaking, and we're going to have to take a hard look at the assets and resources that we put into this war against terrorism, and we're going to have to make sure that our allies and anyone who wants to do business with us and who expects us to have friendly relations with them is on our side in this battle. I think that we have to go further than we've ever gone in making clear that we protect the lives of Americans, we protect our people and our homeland, and homeland defense has to be the #1 priority. We saw that yesterday, and I think that has to be the principal objective of every single person in our country.
Senator, we thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in New York shortly when you come here to assess everything for yourself.
Well, I hope to be there later this afternoon if the transportation can get worked out, Jane, and I thank you for what you're doing to keep people informed and give them good information. And again, I just am so proud of every single New Yorker. It's given me, just enormous pride to know that the worst can happen and we can rise to it. So thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator.
Bye.
Gabe Pressman is here on the set with us. He is actually about to do an interview in Israel.
Yes. Shimon Peres, the foreign minister of Israel, is supposed to be in our studios in Israel. Mr. Peres, do you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. Thank you.
Mr. Foreign Minister, was this a great shock in Israel, which is used to suicide bombings?
Almost as much as in the United States, we feel like belonging to your very same family. The agonies, the worries, the families, the people who are wounded. We feel like being part of them and they being part of us. And we are following almost hourly about what's taking place in New York, in Washington, and in the other cities.
Mr. Peres, you won the Nobel Peace Prize, and you have recently been trying to arrange another meeting, or several meetings, with Yasser Arafat, who expressed his condemnation of what happened here. Do you believe he's on the level?
I think he's now facing a real choice. From today on, he has to decide to which camp does he belong. To the camp that supports or uses terror, or to the camp that has decided to bring an end to this terrible and ugly war, to this impossible dimension. There is no longer any way to combine the two or escape the choice. And my hope is that Mr. Arafat will make the right choice.
Mr. Peres, we got word this morning that you wanted to talk to the people of New York. Why?
Well, you know, for us, New York is like a city on the map of our heart, if not on the map of our land, and to tell them that we can fully understand what they're going through. And it's very hard to offer any real condolences under such a condition. But America is always great and strong. And it is for America again to save freedom, to secure humanity, not to let again the world fall in the rules and laws of a jungle. It's a new dimension of confrontation, a new horrible confrontation. But I'm sure that if we shall get ourselves organized again, we can win this war as well. The difference is that until now, all wars were a matter of nations and armies. Today, we may have armies and we have nations, but we don't have the sort of an enemy we used to have in the past. Today, we have, instead of an enemy, we have a danger. And the danger, like the economy, is of a global nature. We have to get ourselves organized globally, go from one place to another place and find out with our own eyes, are they supporting or hiding or encouraging terror, or are they objecting to it? The ones that support or host terror should be condemned as countries of terror. Then I think, and I'm glad there is a beginning to it, the leaders, the spiritual leaders of our time, must stand up with a clear voice. The leaders of Christianity, of Judaism, of Muslims, have to condemn this terrible thing that young people, many of them immature, are putting explosives on their body or take a knife in their hands and they go to kill thousands and thousands and thousands. If some religious people will permit it and encourage it, then they will be anti-Christ and anti-Lord and anti-values and anti-gospel. We have to gain, not only to pray to the Lord, but respect his call for humanity.
Mr. Peres, Israel was created, modern Israel, out of biblical doctrine. Do you see this as a cataclysm of biblical proportions, what happened here in New York?
Yes, I think from time to time, history put us at test to see how can we handle uninvited catastrophes, unbelievable agonies, and remain what we should be, a people that believes in the basics of our existence, namely the foundation of values of the gospel.
You're optimistic that out of this carnage, out of these thousands of people who have perished, some good may yet come?
It's more than optimistic. I believe America can handle this situation as well, this nature of the confrontation. America is a great country, and once America will decide to get itself organized, and there is nobody else in the world that can replace the United States of America, and may I say with my full heart, God bless America, America can really organize the necessary camp on the global dimension to handle terror, not when it arrives to the city or to the airport, but at the moment when the terrorists are leaving their first location, to intercept them because before they will become a horror. And I'm sure the United States is determined and strong, intellectually convinced, administratively organized, and that will be the result of this terrible catastrophe.
Israel, through the Mossad and other agencies, is very sensitive to intelligence involving terrorists. Do you have any information, direct or
Yes.
indirect, as to whether it was bin Laden or who it was that organized this attack?
We have a general idea who bin Laden is, and we got general warnings. We didn't have a specific one, and any piece of information that we shall have will clearly be transferred to your agencies.
But you can't tell us whether or not such information was passed at some point in the last couple of weeks.
We didn't have any specific warning, and the other warnings that we have had were passed over.
Well, thank you, Mr. Perez. Do you have any last word to the people of New York and this area?
Be strong and be great, like New York always has been and always will remain so. God bless you.
You're a poet, I know, sometimes. You have tried your hand at poetry. Is there a poetic?
Well, there are
What's that?
Well, there are times when the heart speaks, not only the mind.
Not words.
And I try to express, yes, I try to express a little bit of our feelings.
We appreciate very much your coming aboard this morning here in New York. Thank you very much, Mr. Foreign Minister.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gabe. It was interesting to hear his perspective.
He was speaking to New Yorkers, but he also had a message here for Yasser Arafat. It's time for Yasser Arafat to make a choice.
Yeah.
On the side of terrorism.
Fish or cut bait.
Yes.
In Hebrew. Or Arabic.
And of course...
Any language.
Any language. And of course, one may point out that there are more Jewish people living in the city of New York than there are in the country of Israel, so...
Well, not in the city, but in the area. I think
area.
I don't know, I think in the United States it may be so. I believe it's about 2.5 million in the metropolitan area. Israel is now about 5 million.
That was... Thank you. We appreciate that. Thank you very much. We are, we've been telling you we've been waiting for the mayor to hold a press conference. That has been pushed back some, so we are going to rejoin the Today Show in progress. And when we do so, they are apparently interviewing somebody who has some amateur video that they shot during yesterday's tragedy. And we will bring you the mayor's press conference live when it occurs. For now, I'm Jane Hanson with Glenn Walker, and we'll be back in a bit.
You know, New Yorkers, you don't live in New York and don't get a beating once in a while. You know, it's a tough town, but we're tough people. And nothing is going to stop New York from rebuilding, and look out.
I'm curious, you're going to have this tape, I'm sure, forever.
Yeah.
Your son is 2.5 years old?
Yeah.
At what time do you think it would be, when are you going to show him this tape and try to explain to him what his dad saw that morning?
Well, I don't know when. Probably
or
when.
How?
You know what? Probably after they open the new building and say, Jack, you were in school when this happened, but we rebuilt and we're back, we're here. And I know it's going to happen because I love New York. Everyone loves New York. We're here.
Clifton Cloud, this is amazing footage. We thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Here's Katie.
Incidentally, thank you very much, Matt. About 10 minutes from now, actually about 8 minutes from now, President Bush will be meeting with his national security team, obviously, to discuss this and options, and he will make a statement a little bit later at 10:45 Eastern Time. Of course, we'll continue to cover that. Meanwhile, few people understand terrorism and the mindset of Osama bin Laden, as well as General Norman Schwarzkopf, who was Commander-in-Chief of the United States Forces Central Command during the Gulf War in 1991. General Schwarzkopf, good morning to you.
Or Katie.
Well, is there any doubt in your mind, General Schwarzkopf, that Osama bin Laden was behind this?
Yeah, I think there is, Katie. There's an awful lot of terrorist groups out there, and it could be any one of them. Bin Laden certainly has the capability to do it, and would be at the very, very top of the list of suspects, but there's a bunch of other organizations beneath his that are also on the list that can't be ignored.
At the same time, General Schwarzkopf, isn't it true that this really is Osama bin Laden's modus operandi, so to speak? I mean, that he is known for masterminding very coordinated, well thought out, sophisticated efforts. General Schwarzkopf, can you hear me?
I just lost you for a minute, Katie.
Let me just repeat the question. Aren't many intelligence officials thinking that Osama bin Laden was responsible, because this seems to be his MO, his modus operandi, in terms of coordinating very sophisticated, well thought out terrorist attacks?
Exactly. His modus operandi is, number one, to provide the funding that's necessary to do this. Number two, to use, as he did in Africa against our embassies there, he uses local people that he can finance, support, give them the supplies and that sort of thing, and then they ultimately carry out the attack. That's exactly his modus operandi, but it's not his alone. There are others that could do the same thing.
All right, so we've heard a lot from U.S. officials who are understandably, if you've been there when you were in charge during the Gulf War, they're very cautious and measured, but they have talked about possible U.S. military options. General Schwarzkopf, what do they include?
Well, anything from obviously the, standoff attacks that we could make against targets, all the way up into actual, use of ground forces, if the targets presented themselves that way, and if that's the decision of the President of the United States. There's a vast array of alternatives. The toughest part, Katie, of dealing with terrorists is, number one, you got to find out where they are.
Right.
And that's the major challenge. Until you know where they are, you don't have a target to hit. And certainly we can't just go ahead and indiscriminately bomb huge areas without having any idea what it is we're going after. I'm sure that there's an array of alternatives that are available, that have been developed long since by the Joint Chiefs. And now it's a question of selectivity. What enemy are we going after? Where are they located? And then what's the most effective means? And there may be many effective means that could be utilized against them. And then it's a question of which one you're going to utilize.
So in other words, it could be a multifaceted approach with a lot of different resources being brought to bear. You mentioned actually finding these individuals, bin Laden perhaps, or some other terrorist leader and his associates. And we cannot really emphasize enough how difficult that is.
Well, it's worse than the needle in the haystack. But as I said, there are several groups out there, any one of which could be responsible for it. They've got support bases. That's one of the most valuable targets to go after, because these things don't happen without support. Somebody got them to the airport, somebody fed them their breakfast, the dinner the night before, provided shelter over their heads, right here in our own country. So obviously there is a group of people here that were a support base for this organization, and then it goes all the way back to the home organization, wherever it might be, and who's supplying whatever they were supplied. So it's a very, very, very difficult, tedious process, and we shouldn't jump to conclusions. I hate to say it, but remember when Oklahoma City first happened, everybody said, well, this was Islamic terrorists that did it, and it turned out it was a home-cooked operation. So I think that we have to be cautious and really let the people who know the business well do what they do well, and they'll find out who's responsible.
Although, General Schwarzkopf, we should point out that those 5 Arab individuals who were tracked down at Logan Airport in Boston, 2 with passports from the United Arab Emirates, I mean, there are some indications that these might, in fact, be individuals who are not within our borders, who do not live in the United States. And again, we shouldn't jump to conclusions about that. I talked to Sandy Berger, the former National Security Advisor during the Clinton administration, as he left the studio this morning, because we need to think ahead, too, because if we engage militarily with whomever or against whomever, the United States also has to prepare for some kind of retaliation. And what kind of weapons, for example, of mass destruction, do some of these individuals, whether it's Osama bin Laden or someone else, have access to?
Well, I'd like to hope that they don't. Weapons of mass destruction there are many different kinds. If you're talking about nuclear weapons that somebody may have gotten out of the Soviet Union, that's a possibility, but very, very, very slim. It's one thing to have them missile like that, it's another thing to be able to utilize it. But there's a lot of other alternatives that they could come up with, and I think our military people and our national security people are well aware of the options, and I think are capable of doing something about that.
General Norman Schwarzkopf, General Schwarzkopf, thanks very much. It's great to see you again, but again, under the worst circumstances possible. I'm sure, like so many Americans, you woke up this morning still incredulous that this had actually happened.
Yeah, Katie, it's a combination of deep sorrow, but also deep rage, and you can't help but feel that inside, you know, a sense of frustration that we've got to do something about this. Let me give you a thought, though, that I think is very important. A lot of people have criticized what we did in Iraq in Desert Storm, but the truth of the matter is we went to extraordinary limits to try and avoid any civilian casualties, to try and avoid, even at the risk of a greater risk to our own pilots. But you look at these bastards and what they did yesterday. They deliberately went after civilians and innocent people, and that's what makes the difference between us and them.
General Norman Schwarzkopf. General Schwarzkopf, thank you very much. It is 29 minutes after the hour. Now here's Matt.
All right, Katie. Just moments ago, Israeli Foreign Minister Shimon Peres spoke with WNBC's Gabe Pressman. We want to show you now what he had to say.
Do you see this as a cataclysm of biblical proportions, what happened here in New York?
Yes, I think from time to time, history put us at test to see how can we handle uninvited catastrophes, unbelievable agonies, and remain what we should be, a people that believes in the basics of our existence, namely the foundation of values of the gospel.
You're optimistic that out of this carnage, out of these thousands of people who have perished, some good may yet come?
It's more than optimistic. I believe America can handle this situation as well, this nature of the confrontation. America is a great country, and once America will decide to get itself organized, and there's nobody else in the world that can replace the United States of America, and may I say with my full heart, God bless America, America can really organize the necessary camp on the global dimension to handle terror, not when it arrives to the city or to the airport, but at the moment when the terrorists are leaving their first location, to intercept them because before they will become a horror. And I'm sure the United States is determined and strong, intellectually convinced, administratively organized, and that will be the result of this terrible catastrophe.
Israel, through the Mossad and other agencies, is very sensitive to intelligence involving terrorists. Do you have any information, direct or indirect, as to whether it was bin Laden or who it was that organized this attack?
We have a general idea who bin Laden is, and we got general warnings. We didn't have a specific one, and any piece of information that we shall have will clearly be transferred to your agencies.
But you can't tell us whether or not such information was passed at some point in the last couple of weeks.
We didn't have any specific warning, and the other warnings that we have had were passed over.
Well, thank you, Mr. Peres. Do you have any last word to the people of New York and this area?
Be strong and be great, like New York always has been and always will remain so. God bless you.
You're a poet, I know, sometimes. You have tried your hand at poetry. Is there a poetic?
Well, there are
What's that?
Well, there are times when the heart speaks, not only the mind.
Not words.
And I try to express, I try to express a little bit of our feelings.
We appreciate very much your coming aboard. this morning here in New York. Thank you very much, Mr. Foreign Minister.
Thank you.
That was Israeli Foreign Minister Shimon Peres talking to WNBC TV's Gabe Pressman. Rescue efforts have been going on for about 24 hours now. Some reports are that 300 firefighters may have perished. One firefighter who was at the scene was Parish Kelly. Mr. Kelly, good morning to you.
Good morning, Matt.
I want you to try to explain to me and describe the scene after the second plane hit World Trade Center Tower number 2, and describe for me how many firefighters would have been on the scene, where they would have been in that plaza and in that building.
I can't answer that, Matt. I was actually in Massachusetts working at the time when I saw the second plane hit. I decided to get my vehicle and head to New York after the second tower collapsed because I just knew that there were many, many rescue personnel on the ground, and I just felt compelled to get in my vehicle and come down here and do whatever I could. When you get to the scene, the devastation of the emergency personnel, you come across maybe 20 pieces of fire apparatus that are completely burned out. It's nothing more than the shell. Cruisers, police cruisers are just stacked on top of each other. They're just burnt out pieces of shells. Something down there happened that was just very, very devastating.
You say you drove down from Massachusetts. We all remember a short while ago in Worcester, Massachusetts, that fire that claimed the lives of so many firefighters. But when you hear that up to 300 firefighters may be missing, unaccounted for, and may have perished in this disaster, what goes through your mind?
I just heard that for the first time. I knew there were many, but I didn't hear any figures. We lost 6 up in Worcester, and New York sent an entourage up. They were very supportive, so that's why I felt compelled to come down this way. I cannot even imagine how many emergency personnel. You're talking about firefighters, there were police officers, EMS, there might have been nurses and doctors that came to the scene. I can't even imagine how many rescuers that perished in this. I can't even fathom.
We have to remember that after both planes struck those towers, there was a lot of fire in the buildings, and people sometimes forget that firefighters don't do their jobs in a building like that from the ground or from trucks or something like that. They've got to get inside those buildings to try and put those fires out.
That is correct. From what I understand, the 2 gentlemen that we pulled out from the rubble, one last night and one this morning, from what I understand, they were both inside the building attempting rescue operations. And from what I understand, and this isn't confirmed, but it came from another Port Authority employee, that they actually rode the building down. So they were in the structure when it collapsed.
Some of the firefighters and police officers have been working, as I mentioned, for about 24 hours now, Mr. Kelly, and while they are obviously exhausted, we've been hearing reports that they don't want to leave the scene because so many of their brothers and sisters are still in that rubble. That's something you hear a lot when you talk to firefighters.
That is correct. I was on the line with about 200 other emergency personnel with the concentrated effort of the 2 rescue attempts. The one last evening, and then we switched our approach to get into a better angle, and then we obviously pulled out the second survivor this morning. We did not want to leave. They physically came in and took the equipment out of our hand and had us come off the line. We've been out there for no less than 12 hours, and they asked us to come off the line, and they're sending in some reinforcements now.
All right, Parish Kelly. Mr. Kelly, thanks very much. Our best luck to you during the day ahead.
Yeah, my thoughts and prayers go out to the families. This is just incredible, and until you get down to the scene, I see the helicopter. There's still a lot of heavy fire and smoke down there. Until these shots get back to the nation, I don't think anybody can fathom what we just saw down there.
We thank you for your time, Mr. Kelly. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Here's Katie.
Okay, Matt, thanks very much. Larry Johnson is the former Deputy Director of the State Department Office of Counterterrorism. Mr. Johnson, good morning.
Morning, Katie.
You know, we spoke about 24 hours ago after this happened. We did not, you emphasized not jumping to conclusion that this was some terrorist act. Obviously, this morning, you believe that's the appropriate conclusion to draw.
Yes, absolutely. I've spoken with some people in the government, and they've indicated that there was, in fact, some advanced intelligence. It was general, but it was pointing to the fact that Osama bin Laden was training and was putting personnel through training in aviation. And so clearly, you didn't have to train people in this to take, how to take off and land a plane, just to maintain airspeed and to be able to steer the plane. And unfortunately, it looks like that's the case. You don't have any other group in the world that's connected with doing something like that.
So you're pretty convinced, Larry, that that Osama bin Laden's fingerprints are all over this?
Yeah, and again, I'm not a reflexive, let's hate Osama bin Laden and he's the villain of the moment. But when you look at the incidents that have occurred over the last 10 years, and you look at the people that are killing Americans and calling for the death of Americans, Osama accounts for about 80% of that activity. And he has been the only one willing to take these kinds of casualties to kill innocents. The other folks are fairly, they don't, guerrillas in Colombia and in Turkey and even Hezbollah and Hamas have not gone out and aggressively attacked Americans. So I think it's the past behavior coupled with the recent threats that leaves no other conclusion.
Let me go back to something you said just a moment ago. You talked about advanced intelligence. Right. Can you be more specific about any kind of communiques or messages that were somehow intercepted that perhaps in hindsight should have been taken more seriously?
Well, yeah, that's the problem with this, because unfortunately the way the intelligence usually gets on people's desks, it would be one thing if it said we're going to attack 4 aircraft originating in these airports at this time on this date, then of course the United States could take action. Unfortunately, what I have seen over the last 20 years is you get fragments that only after the fact do you say, oh, that's what it meant. And I'm afraid, unfortunately, that's what we're going to find in this case, that there was not, the tidbits that were available were not sufficient to take action on.
Well, is that the way it is? I mean, do we have to just live with that, or can we somehow beef up U.S. intelligence so these can be interpreted more accurately or taken more seriously?
Well, Jerry Bremer, Ambassador Bremer, made a point earlier on your show, and he's exactly right. I mean, I've got several friends who are in the intelligence community who have been in places where these terrorist acts have occurred. And what they've told me is basically they can no longer go into the sewer to find the rats. We're staying out of the sewers. We don't want to get ourselves dirty. We want to be very antiseptic and clean on this. And consequently, because we are so risk-averse, because we're so afraid of getting sullied with someone who is an unsavory character, we are not in a position to collect this. The world has changed since the Cold War. It was 20 years ago you could go to cocktail parties, try to recruit Soviet agents there. But these people that are attacking us, recognizing they are a small group, they are religious fanatics, and they're not hanging out at cocktail parties and diplomatic functions.
So how do you infiltrate these cells? I mean, how do you use modern-day spies to figure out what these people are up to?
Okay, one thing you have to do, and again, we've got to be willing to have the stomach to do this. We've got to be willing to put people in place for long-term positions, to have them penetrate religious organizations, sometimes having to portray themselves as members of the media. Right now, if you're an intelligence operative, you can't be a member of the media. You can never go out and represent yourself as such. And you can't go out and represent yourself as a member of the clergy. Now, it's nice to talk in theory that, oh boy, we want to penetrate this, but when we get down to where the hard decisions have to be made, we shy away. But when you're looking at 20,000, possibly 20,000 bodies lying there, at some point, I think this is like Pearl Harbor. It will have the same effect on us. Before World War II started, we still had horse cavalry. You couldn't get rid of the old vestiges that no longer were relevant. And unfortunately, we have the equivalent in the intelligence community today of the horse cavalry, and maybe this incident will provoke us to be able to make the changes that need to be made.
All right. Larry Johnson. Mr. Johnson, thanks for talking with us this morning.
Thank you, Katie.
The financial markets should have opened moments ago here in New York, but today is not a normal day, of course. CNBC's Ron Insana covers the markets and was at the World Trade Center when one of the towers collapsed. Hey, Ron, how you doing this morning?
Katie.
When will the markets reopen?
It appears that tomorrow is a likely day for the New York Stock Exchange to reopen. The chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Harvey Pitt, has said publicly he believes there's a reasonable chance the markets will open tomorrow. I talked to a staffer at the SEC just a few minutes ago. He too shares that belief and said that while no formal announcement has yet been made and no formal decision has been made, it is likely we could see something later in the day to that effect.
Has Wall Street pretty much been shut down today in terms of everybody who works down there with investment banks, et cetera?
Well, everything below Canal Street, which is at the southern tip of Manhattan and just north of the World Trade Center area, is inoperative. So yes, the New York Stock Exchange is shut. I've even tried to make calls there earlier this morning, and no one is yet picking up the phone. So the building is not occupied. Foreign markets have shown actually a fair degree of resilience this morning after the Asian markets were beaten up overnight last night in response to this. In Europe today, the markets are far calmer. We see very flat activity. All the exchanges of Europe have stopped for a moment or two of silence to express their sympathies for the victims here in the United States. But a far calmer day in Europe today than it was yesterday.
I understand the gold market's up.
Gold market was up yesterday rather decidedly. So was the oil markets. Those markets, which investors often flee to during times of crisis, are backing off a little bit this morning. We are not seeing the same type of kind of panic or rush to get into hard assets as we did yesterday throughout the day.
What is the impact of all this on the economy? I mean, you really even hate to bring that up given the enormous human toll and the people who are suffering so much right now. But the market closing, all these businesses shut down, what is the impact?
Well, I mean, clearly the collateral damage is less significant than the human toll, but as we were discussing yesterday, this attack was aimed at maximizing not just the loss of life or the political impact, but the economic impact